Okay. I'll be here anyway, so.
Mr. Mayor, you are good to go.
Oh, well, that's good. We're 7:02.
Can I
Okay.
just, before I forget, David, my agenda item didn't make it to the agenda. And I figured the agenda was full enough tonight that it's probably
I thought I saw it
okay.
on there.
You're right, it didn't.
So
I
just,
can tell you,
we'll just add it to next meeting for
I
the
can tell
voting.
you what happened the last two elections when we tried to get it.
Well,
And we
we
should
can add
keep
it to the
trying.
next
We
meeting,
should
okay.
keep trying.
Polling location.
Yeah.
Which would be good.
I think we've got a little bit of time, which is good.
Okay, we'll go official. Welcome, everybody that's here. We have our full council, minus one who has resigned and will be filling that position tonight. On the agenda, I want to pull items 1 and 2 off of business items and move them right up to the top. We want to put those after report. We're going even ahead of reports, I think. They'll be right at the top after public input. Well, the 2 appointments, item 1 and 2, everybody's good with that?
Yes.
So we will begin with the prayer of thought by Robert Turk and followed by the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads before thee at this time and give thee thanks for the blessings that we have received at thy hand. We're especially grateful for the snows that have fallen, and we pray that we may be able to receive more snow and moisture, that our reservoirs will be filled, and that the people in this area will be able to prosper and thrive this coming year. We're grateful for the great community we live in and for the people of this community. We ask a special blessing upon us this evening, that we might be able to think clearly and make decisions that are best for this city and for its citizens. Once again, Father, we're grateful for all that thou hast done for us. We ask that we might be guided by thy hand. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sounds so much better when people are here to say it.
Yeah, so it's really good to see the crowd here, and we're pushing the COVID limit here, but if people are comfortable with where you are, I'm comfortable with how we are too. And so we pondered maybe only having people who were actively on the agenda in the room, but I think we're kind of on the edge. Good to see you, Sean. I had half a check mark here hoping we were going to see you, so glad you made it. We have one of the other candidates who has told me they'll be coming later. So has everybody had a chance to review the agenda and the minutes? Do we have any comments, questions, corrections?
I didn't see anything.
I will make a motion that we approve the agenda, January 26th agenda, the January 12th meeting minutes, and the financial disbursements from the 7th to the 25th.
I'll second.
It's Bowers and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like everybody. So moving along. We always have our item there. If there's anybody has any particular agenda item, conflict of interest, now's the time to let us know. And so we now have public forum, and there's quite a few people here and we don't often have a lot. I'll read the little thing here. Anyone wishing to address the council on any item is invited to do so. Public input is an opportunity for the public to bring information to the council. Clarifying questions may be asked by the council, but it is not an appropriate time for substantive discussion. The reason for that is we want things to be on the normal published agenda so that if the public are interested in that topic, they are aware of that and can come and participate in that. And so we don't really want public input to become an arena where people bring stuff up that the public doesn't know we're talking about. But it is a great place to open that up and then we can bring it back. So is there anybody wanting to address the council in our public forum? Josh Nilsson. I guess I should say state your name for the record, but I stated it, but you can state it again for the record.
All right, I'm Josh Nilsson. So I don't know if this is the right format to do this, but I just want to address the whole council in a whole, and we can keep this quick. I know there's a lot on the agenda tonight, but with my little business of tour guiding, trying to move forward and growing, we are looking at trying to build a little office building where I can have some frontage space and place to meet my clients. But to do that, I understand there's a building code that requires sewer stuff for anywhere where customers might go in a building, and where it's not a place where they'll actually be shopping or spending time. It'll be a place to meet, shake hands, and sign some paperwork. What I'm hoping to get or have open a discussion about is being able to waive that regulation and be able to put just a little office building similar to like the Blacks settled down by Blackhawk. Just something that sits there, puts another little office store in city in city limits, and maybe drives a little business.
I'll ask for one item of clarification because Brett, if you're listening, that's a state code, correct, that governs that?
Brett, are you on? Can you hear us?
No, he's muted right now.
There we go. Okay. So if you have a public building where the public comes in, you're required to normally have at least one bathroom in it. So that would require plumbing and water and that kind of stuff.
And if there was a request to get a waiver on that, is that something that is even possible that would happen through Board of Adjustments? Or is that particular code can't be questioned because it's not our code?
That's a state code. That's not a city code.
We don't have any jurisdiction over it.
We don't have any local jurisdiction here in Blanding.
So
That's what I
Brett,
understood from.
does it depend on building size?
Can I add something to there?
Sure.
Sorry. So even if it was strictly city code, a variance as such, they would have to show an undue burden essentially
Right.
on them for that. So even if it was city code, we wouldn't be able to grant some sort of variance for that.
Well, yes, we could. They would just have to show undue burden.
Yes, unless they have undue burden or we adjust the city code. There wouldn't be any other ways, but it's state code, so there's not an option to do
Well, I
that.
guess we're not the people that can answer the question.
But if you want to just call me and staff, we can talk through with you and try and figure things out. All right.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
you. Thanks, Josh.
Anybody else want to address the council? Okay, seeing none, we will move our two business items, number 1 and 2, right to the top. The Planning Commission has had some discussion. They made 2 or 3 recommendations, and as we follow those along, Sherry Ann Pugh has accepted an appointment as a member of the Planning Commission. So I'm looking for advice and consent on, can't think of the word I'm after there, but
Appointment?
yeah,
Sounds good.
on the appointment.
Yes.
Sorry.
I said my part.
I'm trying to decide if we need a motion, but we don't. I think she's great.
Yeah, I don't know if that requires a motion. It's just, they're just saying how we like it. So I think by advice and consent, she's in.
And this is Terrell Pugh's wife.
Which there's 2
There's
Sherry
Sherry,
Pughs.
yeah, I think one's Sherry Lynn, one's Sherry Ann.
Yeah,
So,
I get all confused.
okay, but that's who it is. Okay. Yep, I'm good.
I was just glad when I called her and she didn't say, well, I guess so. She said, yeah, I would love to. So I was really excited about that right off. So that was good. Okay, you ready? You can move ahead with that, Brett. Okay, appointing a city council vacancy. This is one of those times when because of how things have evolved over the years, I've been involved in a lot of city council appointments, and I voted on, I think, 8 or 9 of them. And the one that we've done since I've been in the middle chair was so much easier because I can't vote. I have no vote. Even in the case of a tie, there is not a tiebreaker vote. There is state code that governs what you do in the case of a tiebreaker. And so we will want to move right into pursuing this appointment. And so those candidates who are here, we had 8. One has withdrawn earlier this afternoon. So we have 7 now. 6 of you are here. 1 I know is coming later. So what I did is I put everybody's name in a spreadsheet, and then I put a random number generator in the column next to that and let it sort it the way it wanted it to. And coincidentally, the one, Trent Herring, who needed to be later, he actually went to the bottom of the list. So somehow the computer knew. So the order of the interviews is completely random. This is a 1-year appointment. This appointment serves through the end of 2021. So if you intend on retaining that seat, you will be running for election this year. You would need to file in June. There's about a 5-day window there. So we'd make sure, the staff will make sure if you intend to run to not let you forget to file. We will, in the event of a 4-way tie, if 4 people each got 1 vote, we will ask that those 4 then readdress council and try to sway one of those votes, and then we will re-vote. This is out on advice from Kendall. If we have a 2-way tie, if 2 people each had 2 votes, then in keeping with state code, we go to a game of chance. It seems kind of crazy, but that's what happens. And what's our game if we happen to have that?
We'll cross that bridge.
He said dueling pistols, but I didn't think that was a game of chance.
Only one of them's loaded.
Wow.
I'm joking.
In the staff meeting this morning, I said we should play tractor chicken like on Footloose.
So hopefully, it just seems so weird that that's how that would be resolved, but that is what would happen. Whoever is appointed would have the option to swear in immediately upon being appointed, and then they could take a seat and participate in the meeting, acting in that role. Or if you chose to have family come, and we could do that swearing in at the next meeting. So that would be your option. So what we'll ask you to do is give a brief introduction. Who are you? What's the reason you should be appointed? Why you're running? The things that you've been contemplating. There will be a few questions from council, which will be the same to each candidate. Not many, shouldn't take too long. And then the heavy burden of trying to figure out who to vote for falls to these 4 people. That's why they get the big bucks. Now, I said in my response email that it's an open meeting. I cannot ask anybody to leave an open meeting. But out of courtesy to the other candidates, I would ask you to consider waiting out in the hall so that the later candidates don't have the advantage of hearing the interview of the earlier candidates. But I can't ask you to do that. I'm only suggesting that might be a courteous thing to do. So our order of interviews, is there any questions? Can we know where we're at? Everybody on board?
So when we're ready to decide, then we're verbally voting? Is that how it's going? I mean, I know I've done this before, but it's so stressful, I forget every time.
The state code is that it is a roll call vote, which means you say who you're voting for. I like to protect the privacy of that individual vote, and the state code doesn't let you do that. And so the way that I do this, and I've had two city attorneys who've agreed with me, is that, and I forgot to get pieces of paper, but we'll get some. You write your name and the name of the person you're voting for and turn those in. So in that moment, you have the privacy and the confidentiality of your vote. I think that protects the integrity of the vote. And then 30 seconds later, I'm going to read your name and the person you voted for to comply with state code, because that is the rule. Any other questions?
I just have one other clarification, like you don't have to stay for the whole meeting. You are welcome to. But once that decision's made, if you want to leave, that's okay. Like,
Right.
if you haven't been to city council, you kind of think you have to be here the whole time. And that's cool. You're welcome to, but know that.
It has to be one
She's
of the
already
7.
sitting up here.
And I don't have to run again this year. It'd be great.
Okay, so of the candidates, are there any questions about how we're proceeding, or how this is gonna happen? Okay, so the order of our interviews are Levi Myers first, Lehigh Lacy second, Sean Begay third, Robert Ogle fourth, Joshua Hunt fifth, Kellen Nielsen sixth, and Trent Herring hopefully will be here by then. Sure he will. He will be 7th. We had 8, but like I said, one withdrew earlier today. So those who choose to allow privacy of the person being interviewed, if I hang out in this hall over here, we'd close this door, but we would keep this one open because it's an open meeting. And looks like everybody's taken off and Lehigh's.
I'd make them leave.
You didn't do that for me when I had to go through.
Thank you.
You weren't the mayor.
No.
You were totally.
Do I need to stand right here? It doesn't
You don't have to. You can stand where you want to.
You can do whatever you would like to do, whatever's comfortable.
Does help you channel the power. Oh, I feel it already.
Take one down, pass it around.
Oh, good. I was gonna bring a yellow thing and write notes, but I don't have to write notes because I'm just gonna read papers. Okay, Levi, give us your spiel and we'll entertain questions. I'll have 2 really quick questions when you're done.
My name is Levi Myers. I've lived in Blanding most of my life. I've worked down at the detention center or the youth center, whatever you want to call it, for about 18 years. I've worked with youth my whole life, and I really enjoy working with our youth in this community. One of the reasons that I decided to try out for city council, or whatever we're calling it, is I just really want to serve the community. I want to make sure that Blanding is keeps what we have here, to protect what we have here. I really like what goes on, and I haven't disagreed with a lot of the things in city council for a long time. And so that's about it.
Okay, I had two questions, and I guess we'll start from here and come around. If you're appointed, do you intend to run to hold that seat for the?
Yes.
Okay. What is your skill set, or how do you work with people of diverse backgrounds, experience, and opinions?
So I work with a lot of people in the community, and usually when it's at their hardest time, usually in crisis mode. So I have a lot of training, working with parents and youth and trying to, help them regulate or fix the situation. I work in all the schools in San Juan County. I teach a class in all the schools from Monument Valley to Moab. So I feel like I know a lot of the San Juan County. I hope that answers your question. I don't know.
Sure. Okay.
I have 2, and you kind of answered the one, but I do want to ask it to everyone. Do you have, or what are your top priorities, or do you have any agenda items you want to accomplish on city council?
I do not have any agenda items. I haven't been to city council for quite a while, but I do like to see kind of what's going on. I know you guys have been working on the monument stuff and that kind of stuff, so I don't have an agenda.
Okay, and then my last one is, why did you decide to apply for appointment versus running on the last election when it was open?
I just had a really strong prompting. to do it.
Thank you. Any questions? Karen?
And just so you know, we're probably just as nervous as you are up here.
All right,
If that makes you feel any better.
sure.
My questions are, what is your level of education?
High school.
Okay. And what other boards or ways have you volunteered or served in our community?
Probably one of the things that I like to do that I'm doing right now is I volunteer to do music at all the high school games. I enjoy it. It's pretty fun. I've done help with some of the, it's been a while, but I used to help with some of the dang, I forgot what it's called now, but I lost it. I kind of help with some of the handicap, helping
Special
them, yeah,
Olympics?
special ed stuff. I enjoy doing that, but mostly just, youth stuff, so.
Okay.
Cheryl?
So my question is, government works slower than I should have guessed, but it works a lot slower than I thought it would when I first got on council. And you're also dealing with 6 people's opinions, which is, I think, a very positive thing because everyone has something to offer. But I'm just wondering if you brought something to council and everyone disagreed with you. Maybe you had an agenda item and everybody disagreed and it didn't pass, or 3 people disagreed and your item didn't pass. I'm wondering how you would react to something like that.
I'd probably throw the chair through the wall. No, I mean, everyone has their own opinions. Everyone has their reason why. I think it's really important when you're deciding something like that. Obviously look at both sides, and that's okay. I would probably question it after or ask why, but.
And I asked the question knowing that you're not going to tell me you're going to throw things at the walls, but it's just to hear your reaction. So no, I mean, I'm so glad actually you said you're going to throw things against us. We need some of that in here. No. We don't. We got good people. And then my last question is if there was, and this has kind of been asked, but if there was one thing that you can improve about the city while you were on city council in this next year, what would it be?
I don't know anything specifically, but I would really make sure that the small businesses can survive in this town. I've had a go at a lot of my own small businesses, and I know how hard it is to not only start a business, but to keep one going. And it's really hard in a small town. So if there would be anything I could do to help the small businesses of this town, that would be probably one I could think of right now.
Thank you.
Well, my question's kind of already been asked, but I'll ask it again. Really, what's driving you to want to do this? What's that prompting? Why do you want to be on this council?
I just really love this area. I love Blanding. It's, it's on a good path, I feel like. I mean, I just feel like I really need to serve the community in this way. And if I can help make big decisions or small decisions and be more a part of it, then it would be good. I mean, if this doesn't work out tonight, then I will probably plan on running anyway. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else, follow-ups? Okay, thanks, Levi.
Thank you.
Thank
Chase
you.
Lehigh in, he's next.
Lehigh.
Go this way.
You can go out that door.
I guess you can stay and watch because you already know it's.
Maybe I'll ask him.
You should- I was gonna run against that.
If the perfect storm happened, there could be only one person left at this table that's sitting here now.
I'm just trying
Lehigh.
to figure out if I can quit so one of these people can take my. And we can just come to it. Okay?
We'd have to advertise that for a
Oh,
separate 2
lame.
weeks. Okay, so Lehigh, give us your little spiel, and then I will ask a couple of questions, and the council each has some really brief questions for you.
All right, my name is Lehigh Lacey. I lived in Blanding. Can I take this off? I've lived in Blanding my entire life. I worked in numerous places here in Blanding when R&R was open. I worked some hotel jobs. Recently, I've been in law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement for 16 years. Most of my goals are public safety awareness. We need a lot more education that the city can provide on their end to help our citizens be more aware of new laws and new way things are going with the communities around the world, around this nation. Maybe some insight on that. We've been living here since 16 years, me and my wife. She teaches at the high school. She's been in education for the last 13 years. That's my spin.
Okay, if you are appointed, do you intend to run to retain that seat for the additional 2 years? Okay. What is your skill set, or how do you work with people of diverse backgrounds, experience, and opinions?
Well, in law enforcement, we see a lot of that. I can handle myself and see others' opinions, and I don't ever contradict their opinions. I don't ever correct them, but I give my opinion and why I believe what that opinion should be, and go from there.
Okay.
What, if any, are your top priorities, or do you have agenda items that you'd like to accomplish while on council?
So one of the things that I've been talking about is the community safety, health, and providing education to the community. Recreation or youth sports is a big thing. I love watching. I love coaching. I volunteered for coaching every sport I can except for basketball. So I love watching our kids thrive, and I loving our kids finding their love for sports and their talents for each sport, and the economy growth in our city could use a big push. I think we've got a lot of good businesses, but we could always have some more different diverse businesses in Blanding to help grow that economy.
Okay, thanks. And then my last question is, why did you decide to apply for the appointment versus running on the last election ballot?
I missed the window, and I was employed by the city at that time. So and then I found out that you couldn't be a city employee and city council member, so that deterred me from that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my question is, what is your level of education?
I got my associate's degree in criminal justice, and I am currently working on my bachelor's degree in social work with an emphasis in criminal justice.
Okay, and I'd like to know what other areas of service you've done in our community, what volunteer work you've done, what if you've served on boards, or I know you said you're a volunteer coach, so things other than that.
I have not served on any boards.
Okay.
So government works really slow, a lot slower than, I knew it worked slow, but it's slower than I thought it was when I first got on council. And it's okay, I've learned to deal with that. And and keep moving forward anyway. But you know, when you're on here, you also have four other council members who are here and a mayor. All have opinions and all have different opinions and all may vote different than you. So my question is, if you presented an agenda item to the council and maybe nobody agreed with you and everybody voted against you, how would you react and handle that?
In a professional manner, you just gotta do a little bit more research and find out a little bit more information to help persuade others to know why that's important to you, rather than forcing opinions on other individuals.
Okay. And then my next question was, what would the one thing be that you would improve in the next year on city council? But you've kind of answered that with the community safety and recreation. So I think we're good there.
The education, I think, is a huge thing.
Okay.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
guess I
Go
can.
ahead. You can
Can I ask a
follow up.
follow-up question to his?
Sure.
So how, when you say education, what does that mean to you? Like, how would you educate the community in those areas?
Giving out flyers, more open forum meetings, getting people to come down and talk. Like I know marijuana is with the marijuana card right now. It's legal if you got the medical marijuana card, and it's going to be I think it's going to be a big thing in the state. And if we have the education from the pharmacists that work for the state that are in that department, can help push that and tell our officers and our youth and our parents on what to look for and what to have in their minds to know which is legal, which is not legal.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is very similar to one of Logan's, and it's what's driving you to want to be on the council? You know, what's pushing you to want to be here?
I got away from patrolling, which I miss a lot. I miss the community interaction with individuals, and I think this is a good way for me to continue my work in my law enforcement position and be more involved in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Follow up?
Just so you know, we're nervous too.
Okay, thank you. You can hang out here. Levi could too. But yeah, we asked Sean.
So you can wait out there and here.
Yeah.
They're all like, it's safer out there. Me too.
Sean,
Thanks.
did you get my email? Okay. When you weren't here a little bit earlier, I thought, oh, if he didn't get that email, we for sure need to call, because I didn't want to fail you on that. So that's good. So if you want to take just however much time you want, a minute or two or three or four, and tell us about yourself and kind of why you're here and what you want, why you want to sit here. And then we'll follow up with a couple of really quick questions.
My name is Sean Begay. I'm one of the many Sean Begays in town, you know. So thank goodness they're all, you know, good guys and everything. Because
well, I will tell you, when they said Sean Begay, I said, yeah, he's a great guy. And then they pulled up a picture. I said, oh yeah, that Sean Begay is a good guy too. So,
I'm in trouble for some of the other ones too. So we won't talk about that. But anyhow, I've been in Blanding, you know, off and on, lived here, I guess you could say back in 2010 to like about 2012, you know, my first go around. My in-laws are from here and everything. Originally hadn't been to Blanding, you know, like grew up in Kirtland, Fruitland, New Mexico, you know, but I always like traveled up to Utah County by way of like Monticello. Never knew that anything south of Monticello existed, not until I married my wife. As a matter of fact, I'd never been to Monticello Valley until, you know, I was employed with UNHS and everything. What turned into like an opportunity, you know, like is a career for me now. You know, I love being down here. I love serving, you know, like the people, you know, of our UNHS service area. Blanding's a great place, you know, like we've desired to come here and, you know, raise a family, feel a sense of community here, you know, like a sense of safety and everything, you know, like people are very cordial, you know, like they go out of their way to help you out and everything. So, you know, like I've continued my schooling, my studies and everything, have Attained my Master's of Public Administration with the University of Utah. Finished that a couple of years ago. My capacity with public health right now, I have some chance to dabble in with that, but not completely. Really appreciative, of calling, landing my home and everything. My kids, love it here and everything. At first they were resistant, just change and everything, but we've really gotten to, love the community and everything. And really want to give back, in this capacity right here. Didn't really consider it until I did see it on a social media post. And my wife kind of showed it to me and she says, you might be good for this. I'm like, nah, no, maybe, but it's really not my, forte in a way. It wasn't until I ran into Kim Palmer at the service station just recently, and she, I just kind of casually answered it, asked about it. So she shed a little bit more light about it, sent me in the way of Logan, and I asked Logan quite a bit of questions on it. Haven't really never served in a capacity, on a council before. I have served on a San Juan Public Health Board, for a period of time for about a year. Obviously, I'm in UNHS administration. But that's kind of how I am. That's who I am. I've got 5 kids. They all attend school here in Blanding, and they all participate in various sporting activities within the town here. So that's me.
Thanks. So, well, the questions are pretty brief. Nothing to worry about. I have a couple. I think everybody actually had 2, incidentally. If you're appointed, do you intend to run to finish out the next 2 years?
Yeah, I do. I do plan on that. As I mentioned before, just spreading my wings. I've never served in this capacity before. I'd be, anxious to learn the ins and outs of it. So yes, I would.
Okay. How would you describe your skill set or your talent at working with people of diverse backgrounds, experience, and opinions?
I think that's all I've done, in my current job, through schooling and everything. Through my MPA program, you got to work with a lot of opinionated people, not saying that you got to change all their minds completely, but you got to be able to find middle ground and everything. So yes, I believe I do have those skills.
Okay. Logan.
If you are to be appointed, what are your top priorities, or do you have any specific agenda items that you'd be looking to address while on council?
On the council and everything, I don't know if I have anything particularly I like to address. It's more or less learning, the whole workings, the ins and outs of the city council and everything from the planning, to approvals, to proposals, the gentleman that was here proposing what it is that he, wants and everything. So learning more about that, on a city council level.
Perfect. And then my last question is, and you kind of answered it, but I'll ask it anyways. Why did you decide to apply for this appointment versus running on the last election?
I think just opportunity, really never considered it, like I mentioned before. It just happenstance that the vacancy was there, through my education and everything, I felt like maybe, it could be a good fit. So, why not, after receiving encouragement from numerous people.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I asked everyone else their level of education, and I don't need to ask you that because you answered that already, just so you're aware. But I'd like to know, you said that you served on the San Juan Public Board of Health. Are there other ways that you have volunteered in the community or other boards you've served on?
Other ways, let's see here. Right now, I serve on the Native American, Alumni Association. So our whole objective is to, network a lot of the Native American alumni that come from BYU, starting up chapters, per se, in the Phoenix, area, Albuquerque, out east. And so we're trying to use our network through alumni to be able to build that, I guess you could say, camaraderie amongst us. That's a big one right there. As far as other boards, let's see here. I'm trying to jog my memory.
Katie, you don't just mean boards, you mean in general in the community.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kids and other ways too.
So the SJ PAC, I sit on that here and there. As much as my schedule allows, I'm able to, sit in and, talk about what it is that we're doing in the community. Obviously present, programs that we got going on, not only to, what's going on with us, but let everybody else in that organization know what's going on, with my program and so forth. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so,
So it's hard to ask these same questions over and over. It feels like I've already said all this before, but I have. That's because I have. So government works slowly, but it works. And it took me some time to realize that. But one of the questions I have is, let's say you presented an item to council, and I understand when I ask this question, people don't know exactly how all this works, but you presented an agenda item to be voted on at city council, and there's 4 other people here at the table that sit with us and help us make these decisions. And everybody voted against your agenda item and voted it down and didn't support you. How would you react to that situation?
You're passionate about things, like in your mind, you more or less like really think it's going to work and so forth. I mean, for you, it's perfect and everything, like the way you present it and everything, like there might be obviously, opposition to that. I mean, one thing that I learned is that you got to take things with a grain of salt. I mean, maybe it's not time for that particular item, at that particular period of time. Maybe that's something that could be proposed down the way. I mean, take it as a learning opportunity and, learn from it. Like if you're passionate about it, then maybe that's something you could revisit down the road again, but maybe at that particular time, I mean, if everybody's in unison about it, like maybe it's not the best thing to move forward with.
Okay, thank you. And then Logan asked this also a little bit, but I'm going to push it just a little bit more. If there's one thing that you could do in the next year on city council to improve the city of Blanding, what would that one thing be?
That's a good question right there. I haven't dabbled a whole lot into city, like politics or, agendas. More or less like you good folks are the ones that kind of make those decisions and so forth. I don't know if I got good feedback for that, and hence, like me being here, learning more about, what goes on the city council is why I'm here and everything. That way, when I'm posed with these questions, yes, I can have a, more, I guess you could say, clear answer and everything. Right now, I don't know if I'm like up to answer that right now.
I'll comment on that because I think that's an exceptional answer. Sometimes the best answer is I don't know, instead of bluffing your way through it. So
Well,
like
my question is, what would you improve about the city of Blanding? So I disagree a little bit with Mayor on that. I'd like to hear an answer personally, but that's okay. If you're not quite sure because you don't know the inner workings of city council, that's okay too.
So, Katie, can I add, I think, is there something important to you in the community that you would like to see more focus on? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
There's something you can improve in the city
Yeah.
that you could do while you're on city council, what would that be? And if that's okay, if it would require more learning, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I said Katie, I meant Cheryl.
I'm trying to think, like, for instance, something that kind of caught my eye was with this pandemic right now, one thing I noticed about Blanding is like, they're very patriotic here, like the celebrations, mean a lot. The fact that we, cancel the, I guess you could say 4th of July, essentially, that really, like rubbed some people the wrong way, I mean, I personally, like adhere to public health standards and everything. I think there's a way we can try to mitigate that, but yet appease to, like, I guess you could say the greater populations, like their desires to hold those celebrations and everything. That might be one thing I would probably change, see that we're in uncharted waters right now. I think we learn a little bit more about coronavirus than we did back then. Back then it was like very scary, like you were just kind of terrified by it. Now that we're a year into this pandemic right now, I think that there's a lot of, that's kind of like shed light on the pandemic and where, restrictions kind of eased up a little bit, but, like as I watch these things and I hear these things, like that decision was from city council here and everything, to go ahead and hold off on those. So that's one thing that I might change, like possibly. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you, sir. I didn't mean to, I just want to make sure he knew that I was looking for an answer and that I would have preferred to get an answer. So, and then just a follow-up question that you mentioned you're on the public health board? Was, okay. For how long?
It's probably like about a year and a half, I'm gonna say.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, my question is very similar to what Logan asked you, but you said that you chose to apply because it was an opportune time. I just want to know if there's something more in you that's other than opportunity that's driving you to want to be on the council.
Maybe, civic duty in a way.
So again,
Civic duty, you know, like also to be good examples to my kids and everything, you know, that yes, dad can do these things, you know, I can do it too, you know. Obviously I look at the council here, you know, there's not much diversity in everything, you know. I, you know, network a lot with the Navajo Nation, you know, I work with the council members there and everything, you know. So not saying that I know all their way of government completely, you know, but as a resident of Blanding, you know, I feel like this would be a good opportunity to me, you know, for me to be able to learn more about things and, you know, spread my wings, I guess you could say. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
You can hang out in here, or next up is Robert Ogle.
I love how they all go out there.
I know.
Sure.
I would 100%.
I was wondering why you kind of gave me a blank look, and I'm like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
said Katie.
Oh, no, it's not.
We're both fabulous. You can call me
Right.
Cheryl.
And you can call me Katie.
Yeah.
Good.
Maybe I should be more
Ow.
formal. Council member Bowers.
Oh, you're,
No,
no,
we're
totally
good.
good. Thank you.
Okay. Robert, tell us about yourself and why you're here and wanting to run, and then we'll follow up with a few short questions.
I have four very, very quick points. The first is an indisputable, decisive making advantage that I have over every candidate. I got a name tag.
That's awesome.
Two, because of past experience, and I've worked with some of you, and I know some of you, I'm very familiar with the city council process, the decision-making process. I might need a little refresher on Robert's rules, but there won't be any ramp-up time. There won't be any waiting time or awkward moments of not participating. I can jump right in, give me an assignment tonight, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Three, I bring a sense of urgency that in these modern days, I think is going to be very, very important. I understand the necessity of debate, vigorous debate and honest debate and discussion, but somehow that gets wrapped up in red tape. We need to find a way to work through that red tape, to take action as quickly as possible, reach the right conclusions, negotiate and compromise if necessary. But I think we need action as quickly as we can. And watching the council in 2020, I really give you guys compliments for some of the things you did. The changes in COVID, you reacted to those very quickly. The care funding, the way it was applied is excellent. Your most recent letter with Marcelo and the Bears Ears, couldn't agree more. And again, I compliment you on your sense of urgency. Speaking of sense of urgency, 2 weeks ago, Marshal Bradford mentioned during his summary of the 2020 police session, he fired a very clear red flare, warning flare. I don't know if you saw it, but I did. And there's an issue there that needs to be addressed very, very quickly. Last note. I have a very clear vision of Blanding. I've moved 16 times all around the country, been in great communities, but this is without a doubt the finest community I've ever lived. I had opportunities to leave, no desire to leave, still have no desires to leave. But I see a bright and brilliant future. And it can be achieved if council decides they want to improve it. Some of the things we need to do is constantly be aware of the social, economic, and political environment. It's very confusing, very volatile, but it's affecting Blanding. And we need to have the ability to judge what's going on and become more proactive rather than reactive. Government, we have to be able to look at the government on the federal, state, county levels, and we need to begin to interpret how that's impacting us. And again, find a way to, wish I had a crystal ball and know how it was going to impact us, because the times, they are changing. And you guys are the You're the decision makers. You're writing history right now. I can help with that vision. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, we've had everybody has 2 quick questions. I'll start with mine and then we'll come around the table. If you are appointed, I'm assuming you intend to run to retain that seat for the full term. And what is your skill set, or how well do you work with people of diverse backgrounds, experience, and opinions?
I'm extremely experienced. Understand this, I'm from New York. And being as such, everybody's entitled to my opinion, and you have to live with that. But in expressing those opinions, I have never once been untoward in language. I've never yelled. I've never insulted. I have never devalued any other opinion. So I'm up for the debate, and expect me as an active participant.
Okay, Logan.
What would your top priorities or agenda items be if you were appointed tonight?
I'll give you one that I feel very strongly about, especially in the current economic times that we're in. This body has always been fiscally responsible, and I applaud you for those actions over all the years that I saw. But I'm not certain a balanced budget is enough. I think we need to begin considering cutting the budget. There's fat in the budget. I brought it up in years past. I think we need to bring it up again. We need to be prepared for fewer revenues, taxes or fees. We're going to have to cut back. At some point, we have to find the fat and have the courage to cut it out.
Perfect, thank you. And then my second question is, why did you decide to apply for this appointment versus running on the last election?
I've been out that long that there was an election between. I'm going to plead old man's disease. If there was an election, I missed it. I would have run. I still have a great desire to serve, a great desire to help this community grow.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, my questions are, what is your level of education?
I have a bachelor's degree, a double bachelor's in accounting and retail management.
And what other areas of volunteer service have you done in the community, boards or volunteer work?
In the community, I've served on quite a few opportunities over the years. For 9 years, I was the chair of the Blue Mountain Hospital Foundation. I sat on the Kigalia Fine Arts Council. I served there. I have my own private seminar series that I participated in. I have volunteered endlessly on church activities. I'm not sure what else I've done.
Were you on planning and zoning?
I'm currently on plan. Don't grow old. This is what happens. I currently chair the planning and zoning, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I asked this question of others who haven't been on council, but you kind of know how council works and how government is slower than we want, and we push it as fast as we can. And did you ever present anything in council, an agenda item that everyone else voted against? And how did you, I was trying to think back, I don't remember that you did, but.
I suppose the most prominent presentation.
And how did you react? Sorry, that was one.
No, I appreciate that. The most prominent presentation is I took about 45 minutes on an economic development plan before there was a Pratt read, hoping that someday we would have someone to take charge. I gave some very succinct and clear ideas on the economic growth, the population growth. There's amazing decisions that have to be made. I'll just mention one that I don't think has ever been made. It needs to. Water. It's a treasure in this community. How much on our best years and worst years, what population can we sustain with our water? We need to know that answer before we even start growing. So those were some of the things that I presented economically and growth-wise. It was not well received, and I went home and cried. And came back and shook everybody's hand the next meeting. It's just the way it goes.
Thank you. And then my last question is, if there was one thing that you could do on city council that you could do to improve the city, what would that one thing over the next year, what would that one thing be?
1 year.
Mhm.
Well, I'll go back to economic development for a moment. There are costs to these ideas. I may want to, build the St. Louis Arch right here in the middle of Blanding. Ain't gonna happen. So if I were to pick an item that is achievable and could be agreed upon, I think we need wayfinding signing in Blanding. We have hundreds of cars, thousands of cars going through right now, $20 in every pocket, and it's being flushed through the community. They never stop. It's free money. It's support for the businesses, free taxes, free fees. I would be aggressive in finding a way to get our guests to stop. So that would be my one item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I only have one question for you, and it kind of feeds off of what Logan said, but what's really driving you to want to be on council?
Good question, good question. As I said, I've got some perspective from around the country. I've lived in great places, but the greatest place is still Blanding. I have a love for Blanding. I know that's a cliche, but that's why I spent the time here. That's why I've served here. I think Blanding has a destiny, and not sure what that destiny is, but I want to help achieve it. I want Blanding to be a destination. I want to respect the heritage and grow the heritage of Blanding itself. I really want to do that. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
I'm done.
You can hang out here, or everybody else has chosen to keep. there, but,
I'm gonna put some pressure on you.
Joshua Hunt.
I'd be careful, that was in his arm.
Wait a minute, I would turn that.
We're all like uncomfortable about that. I love it. Wherever you want to
can sit,
stand.
You can stand, whatever you're comfortable with, you're good. So if you want to just give us a little spiel and who you are, and what you're up to, and why you're wanting to do this, then there's a few short call out questions.
Most of you know who I am, but I'm Joshua Hunt, son of Carl and Deanne. I'm 23, so I'm a little younger than most of the other applicants. I have lived in Blanding my whole life. One of the reasons that I wanted to apply for this is that I've always admired, recently what the city council has done, what their stance has been. And, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to be rubbing shoulders with like-minded people, and it'd be a good opportunity for me to learn and be with people who had the same, or at least had the same respect and love for their community that I feel like that I have myself. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to apply and see how it went. So.
Okay, if you're appointed, do you intend to run to retain that seat for the next two?
I guess we'd have to see how it went, It would be an interesting experience. I've never done anything like that. So it would depend on how I did, how I felt I represented the people of Blanding. In that case, if I didn't feel like I had a good touch with them, then I wouldn't really want to run again, because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do as a city councilor.
Okay, so just kind of your self-evaluation, teach you that over the next. Okay. What is your skill set, or how do you work with people of diverse backgrounds, experience, and opinions?
Okay. So we've had a lot of different jobs that I've worked in my short lifespan. I've done customer service at Clark's here in town. I was a cashier, so I learned how to talk to people and get along with them, make conversation. And then being in construction, you are around a lot of hard characters, of course, and sometimes you have to just bite the bullet and get along with them. And the same as I think for me, what I learned most recently after returning home from a mission is that you're gonna be with people you don't like, but you can still work with them and make the most of it. Because at the end of the day, it's a job, it's what you're supposed to do. And so you just put your teeth, your shoulder to the wheel and go.
Okay, Morgan?
Yeah, I have two questions. My first one is, if you were to be appointed, what would your top priorities be, or any agenda items that you might have?
I think one of the top priorities I want is to see where the citizens of Blanding thought we could do better, what direction they wanted us to take for their best interest, whether it be growing the community, different things that you brought up with COVID, if that's a concern, just different things, getting a feel what the community wants and then going in that direction.
Perfect, thank you. My second and last question is, why did you decide to apply for this appointment versus running up for the last election?
When was the last election?
Just last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't here last year.
All right.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Good answer.
That's all I have. Thank you.
What's your level of education?
High school.
Okay. And what other volunteer work have you done in the community? Have you served on any boards? Have you volunteered in other ways?
I was on the volunteer fire department for around a year before I left on my mission. I was taking firefighting 1 and 2, learning how to do that. It was great. I got to be with great people on the fire department. I've worked for the city for about 15 months. So I've been on the maintenance crew, have a decent idea of how things run, and that I've got a good reputation with the people in town.
Okay.
Where are you working now?
I work for Northern Electric right now.
Oh, okay.
So when you're on city council, you get to work with 4 other council members and the mayor and for city staff, and everybody has their own opinions and ideas and thoughts, and that's good. That's what makes city council, I think, that's what makes our city run so efficiently and effectively. I think part of because we've had great city councils and we have a great city council. But I'm just wondering, let's say you presented an agenda item to city council and something that you were really passionate about, and the rest of us all voted it down and it didn't pass and you didn't get it done. How would you feel and how would you react to that?
If I was passionate about it, I feel like I'd be a little disheartened about that fact. But if it was voted down by the 3 other council members, there would be a reason for that. And I'd want to know what their reasoning behind that was, and then you could reevaluate what it was and move on.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then my question goes a little bit along with Logan's, but I'm just wondering if there was one thing over the next year that you could do on city council to improve the city of Blanding, what would that be?
I think one thing I'd want, along with what I said earlier, is that I would want to, help Blanding grow. There's things that we can do to grow, and I think that would be something that we could review and hopefully do that, because obviously we need to have a direction we're going. Otherwise, we're not gonna know where we're going. You can't measure success without a chart, in a sense, or a goal in mind.
Thank you.
Okay, now my question is very similar to one of the first ones you answered, but I want you to think a little deeper on it.
Okay.
What's really driving you to want to be on this council?
That's actually something that I've always wanted to serve the public. And growing up, the career choices that I wanted were along the lines of firefighter, police, military. I've always felt like I had a sense to help people. And so that's why this would be a good opportunity to do that. You can listen to the citizens of the community, take their opinions or their concerns and get it out there and help them address that. And in turn, that's going to help people know that you care about them and that you are a public servant.
Joe?
Any other follow-up, anyone? Okay, thanks,
you.
Josh.
Thank you.
Josh.
Thank you.
Who's next?
You can hang out here or you can go, and I don't know, they must be
More
shooting
fun in there,
ice
right?
out there or something, I don't know.
You're out there laughing that we got.
Who do we got next?
Helen.
Kellen.
No offense, but it's not a whole, it's not difficult to be more fun out in the hall.
Well, I am offended.
I'm not a candidate, so I can say that.
When's this contract up?
30 days.
There's terms
Anytime,
within the
30
contract.
days.
That's not the answer I was expecting. Okay, Kellen,
Yes.
give us a little rundown on why you're here, why you want to run, you tell us about you, and then we have a few quick questions.
Okay, I'm Kellen Nielsen. I think I know most of you have met you tonight. Been a citizen here in Blanding most of my life, been away for a while, but I love the community. I appreciate it. Never thought I'd see myself in this spot, to be honest. I tend to like to kind of lay back and watch and observe and stuff. But when I moved back about 10, 11 years ago, I struck up a friendship with Bill Redd and had a love for history and politics there. And he encouraged me to kind of challenge myself and to put myself in positions like these. And I've tried to do that over the years. I've been on Planning and Zoning Commission. I was in the Republican caucus, and the state delegate for a few terms there. And he just showed me and you know how important community is, and I see that, and I want to be a part of the community and do my part, do my share, and do good in the community. That's why I'm here.
Okay, thanks. You intend to run to retain the seat and
Right.
finish out the 3 years, okay? Now, what is your skill set, or how well do you work with people of diverse backgrounds, experience, and opinions?
Okay, well, I help run my family's small business here in town. Been doing that for the last 10 years, so deal with a lot of, you know, clientele. There a lot of different people come into the pharmacy, the tourists, you get people of all kinds of, you know, backgrounds, so deal with it there. I think working at the pharmacy there has given me understanding of budgets and economics and how important it is to maintain those and be smart and conscious of those things. Also been involved, some things I mentioned, but also been involved on the Cal Black Scholarship Board member on that. And worked there for the last 2+ years, I think. And then I also teach at the college and work with students there, teach pharmacy type program. And I'm on the board there as well. So I think I have a lot of experience dealing with people and working with people. So.
Okay, thanks. Logan?
Yeah, I just have 2 questions. My first is what would your top priorities be or agenda items that you might have coming into council?
Well, I think budgets are always important. I think looking at growth and way to grow the community and kind of sustain us here financially. I don't know what things will take down the road, but I think things are going to change here, and that something needs to be addressed and important how we address those things.
Awesome, thank you. And then my second and last question is, why did you decide to apply for this appointment versus running for the last election?
I don't know, like I say, I tend to like to kind of lay low, but I've had some encouragement from people to do this. And again, I think it's important that we serve our community, and I think I can do that.
Thank you.
All right, Kellen, what is your level of education?
I have a bachelor's in history from Utah State.
And you mentioned a bunch of boards that you serve on. Is there or have served on any other things that you've done to volunteer in the community?
Other than church calling, church responsibility, I've done a lot of that.
It's cool, you listed a ton. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. I asked everyone else that, and just in case there was something you didn't mention.
I suppose.
And I just have a follow-up question to you are a state delegate now?
Yeah, I think it ends, I'm not sure,
Probably
It's kind of weird.
They kind of suspended it out there
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, I know, so I'm not sure where we.
Yeah.
But you're currently a state delegate, and do you know how long you've been a state delegate? Do you remember how long?
So I think the appointment was 2 years, if I remember right. And then COVID hit, and I think they just extended that. So I think it's 3 years I've been a state delegate.
I think you're right.
That's a big deal. My first time being a state delegate, that's a lot of work. Last year was my first year. So I just have a couple questions. Government worked slower than I thought it did, but we try to push it along. We try to move things along and get some things done in here. But you also work with a team of other wonderful people and 4 other opinions when you're making decisions, and you have a mayor that has his own opinions. So let's say you presented an agenda item to the council, and it was something that you were really passionate about, and you were excited about it, and we all voted it down, and it didn't pass. How would you react to that?
I mean, I'd be disappointed, obviously, but I mean, that's the way government is. I mean, that's how government works. It's you got elected officials and they make decisions, and if your voice doesn't, I mean, it gets heard, but if you don't get what you want, that's the way life is sometimes. I mean, I would be okay with that, especially if you're voted 4-1.
That's a good point. Okay, thank you. And then if there was one thing that you could do, talk a little about some of this, but if there was one thing that you could do over the next year in city council to improve the city of Blanding, what would that be?
That's a tough question. I think, again, just kind of looking towards the future of Blanding community, how do we manage what's coming? I think is probably the most important thing. What with the potential for the monument being reinstated, and how do we manage what we want to become as a community? I think is probably the most important thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have one question, and it kind of piggybacks off of Logan's. I want you to maybe look a little deeper. Why do you want to be on this group? What other than just people encouraging you to do it? Why do you want to?
Well, like I said, going back to what Bill read, and just that, as I watched him in the community, watched how he treated people in the community, what he did for the community, and you're looking back even further, like Cal Black, what they did as far as businesses and just that love of community, that desire to see people succeed around you and to better the community and better the people around you.
Thank you.
Any follow up at all? Thank you, Kellen.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay here or rejoin the party.
Or enjoy the
I'll rejoin
fun
the
out
party.
there.
Oh, come on.
He just verified what I said.
See you down there?
Trent, you made it.
I made it.
I knew you would. I wasn't.
With a win under the belt too.
A weigh-in?
Win.
Oh, win. I'm sorry, so weigh-in. I'm like, are you wrestling?
May I
And
take
we
the
don't-
mask off?
Yeah.
That is your option. You're a long ways away. We're good. So just that I had a little bit of an introduction when everybody was here, but it was kind of more of a summary of what I gave you in the email. So we'll ask you to do just a little intro, tell us about yourself, why you're wanting to have this position. In the event of a tie, a 1-1-1-1 or a 2-2 tie, there is provision in keeping with the spirit of state law. It doesn't actually address it. It addresses it in another case, but anyway, I've talked with Kendall, and there is a provision for handling a tie if we have one. So we're good to go on that. If you are selected, you would have the option to be sworn in immediately and take a seat and act in that office immediately. Or if you wanted to wait and do it the first of the next meeting and have family here or whatever, if you wanted to do something like that, that would be entirely up to you. But if you were appointed, didn't want to swear in, would still want you to sit with us, probably try to start getting up to speed. So that's the information everybody else got. So if you just want to give us your little rundown and give us your spiel, and then we got a few quick questions, and then we'll start the Jeopardy music and let everybody decide. It's gonna be hard.
As long as you hear the Jeopardy music, we'll feel at least entertainment there. For those of you that know me, I'm Trent Herring, David Johnson. I haven't met you yet. Welcome to Blanding. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer of Blue Mountain Hospital here in town. I've been in that capacity for almost 3 years. April will be my 3rd year. For many years, I've had an interest in city council. I've come to a lot of meetings. I have run for city council, Logan.
I guess
But-
talk nothing.
This year, especially more than any other year, with the things that we've seen with COVID, with what's going on in the world and kind of what we're losing. That's one of the key factor this year and why I'm very interested in it, and seeing some of the letters that the city of Blanding has put out in support of those things, such as, not reinstating the Bears ears, those types of things to keep the rights with us and to keep what we fought for and what we take care of. I'm a believer that the reason that the land is so beautiful is because we've taken care of it without the help of the federal government. And so them stepping in, I want to be part of that voice to step in and get that back and try and get that back and be the voice of the people here in the community. I'm born and raised here. Born in Monticello. That was the only hospital at the time. So I've got a lot of ties here. Appreciate Mayor Lyman letting me be a little bit late. I was coaching my son's team. We did win by 2
Nice.
at the end of the game. So it was definitely a way to follow it up by coming here.
Nice.
One of my biggest passions is sports, is kids and getting kids into sports. Now that my kids are the age, I have 4 children, ages 12, 10, 8, and 6. Oldest is my daughter, and 3 sons below that. I coach any chance I get the opportunity, and I am a very intense coach. I try and find out what I can get out of the boys, and I get it. Tonight, Lehi's son, Colt Lacey, I put him on the biggest guy all day long, and he was a good basketball player, and Colt shut him down. And I got it out of him, and that's what I want for the community. I want to get what we can out of this community. I want to fight for it. I want to be a part of it, and I think that's one avenue that we can do it is through recreation, through our kids. We want them to have a place. We want our kids to grow up. We want to get the Dr. Crofts back. We want to get Dane Lyman's back, which they're coming. We want to get the Cade Lyman's back here. We want to bring those kids back to something that they want to be. Anybody that's ever left Blanding, most of them want to try and come back and figure out a way to come back. And I get calls all the time. Is there a job opening? What's open? I want to come back to Blanding. I'll take anything. Blanding is well known throughout the world. It doesn't matter. Story from my mission. I opened up a new area in Jaboatão, Brazil. And they said, just knock on your neighbor's door and she'll help you. She's a member. Knocked on her, told her where I was from. And they said, do you know Stacy Lyman? No, Stacy Lyman Harrison. I said, well, yeah, she's from Blanding. That was my companion on my mission. Blanding gets out. Blanding's well known. And I want to be part of that they continue to be well known.
Okay, I'm assuming you intend to run. If you're appointed, you'll run for that seat. Maybe you'll run anyway, I don't know.
My plan is to run anyway.
Okay.
So yes, I would run for that seat.
What is your skill set and how well do you work with people with diverse backgrounds, opinions, and experiences?
One of the best things about opinions is I think opinions are the way to decisions. Everybody has a right to their opinion, and sometimes people's opinion opens up the brainwave to those others that maybe they didn't think about that side of things. I'm always one that I try and debate both sides of things so that I can see it from both sides, whether it be from a patient's perspective or from me as an employee. I always put myself at the hospital as the patient. Me as a patient, how do I want to be treated? What do I want out of this situation? If that was my kid in the ER and I couldn't go in because of COVID, what can we do for that? And I would treat it the same way here. From a diverse background, I think in and of itself where I work, it's very, very diverse with the cultures that we work with and understanding the needs of people, understanding how to work closely. We have very good relationship with
San Juan Health Districts are, and they're supposed to be our competitors. But yet, you know, we share a general surgeon. We went in together and bought an MRI together because of the needs of the communities versus just our own personal needs. We work very closely with UNHS in many things. I think one of the biggest things that has taught me a lot and how to really work with others. I'm part of a group called HARM. It stands for Hospital Association of the Rocky Mountains. It's a purchasing group that's through the hospital, through a GPO, a group purchasing organization called Untitled. They used to be formerly known as a Marinette. I'm currently the president of that group. And what we do is, instead of Blue Mountain Hospital going and purchasing volume at $1 million, we've got 30 plus hospitals together and we go purchase at a volume of $40 million. So we started that a few years ago and it's grown to a good thing to where now we've become part of a bigger group called INHA, I don't know all these acronyms, which is just another purchasing group organization that's part of Untitled, and their spend annually is $2.5 billion. And Blue Mountain Hospital, this little teeny 11-bed hospital in Blanding, Utah, is able to reach $2.5 million volume pricing because of the relationships that we built there. So I take a lot of pride in that and being able to build that up and understand what that is and how that can work and how volume can drive things. And I think that goes to the purpose of the community. The volume of the community and getting people involved is really how we drive some of the decisions in which we need to make. So another thing that I really enjoy now is grants. I'm on a very consistent grant email list from the federal government to see what's out there and what's available. I think I passed a couple on to Jeremy Redd when he was in that capacity that I had seen. I just thought maybe he'd be interested in it. He probably already knew about it. But that's one thing that I think there's a lot of opportunity out there that we probably already know about, but maybe there's just something. And with COVID, there's been a lot more that have come available, and being able to take advantage of that for the community, I think could be a big deal.
Okay, Logan?
Yeah, I have two questions. My first is, what, if anything, are your top priorities or top agenda items as being appointed?
I think first and foremost, I would have to see what the top agenda items are the group currently has. If there's something on that agenda that needs my focus first, then that would be kind of getting settled in to understand, what's being worked on. I think there's a lot that you all are working on right now. But my top agenda is really community involvement. It's always been community involvement. You hear a lot in the community. You all know that you hear a lot in the community, and back before COVID, you would have the same amount of people with triple the chairs at times, but yet in the community they want to voice their opinion. They want to have say in things. And until it becomes a big issue, such as Bears Ears or something like that, that's when we got the big crowds in. But for some of the smaller things that people really are concerned about, getting them involved and letting them know that they do have a voice and that, there's a place to voice it. You can email any of you anytime. I know I've talked to Logan on a couple of issues, and he said, just email me. I believe I, contacted you as well on a couple other issues. So being open and available to the community is definitely the top priority. And I think I've said it already, but sports and recreation with our kids is one of my priorities. I remember when Lisa Rarick ran and I've said this to you all before, but when Lisa Rarick ran the recreation here in Blanding, we did a state tournament for softball. Eric Johnson coached his daughter at that time. And I was asked to umpire that tournament. And the team showed up and they were like, oh my gosh, this is such a far drive. And I can't believe that we're coming all the way down here. By the end of the tournament, every single team asked, are you going to do this every year? This was amazing. It was awesome. The location, things like that. And I think there's opportunities like that the city can take advantage of to get people that are like us, that like the small community feel, to come here versus, do I want tourism? I do want tourism. I think it's part of our lives, but I think tourism that we can relate to and have control over, such as that, is a key thing. And I think we have the facilities to do those types of things.
Cool, thank you. My second and last question is, Why did you decide to apply for this appointment versus running on the last election?
Last election, I was in school. And so that's what, I put my name in and I actually pulled it out. So that's the reason. When this came open, maybe I wasn't the quickest one, but I had to have been one of the top quickest ones to get that.
There were 5 like day one and then 3 yesterday. So.
The second I saw it, I actually sent myself an email with the link because I didn't want to do it on my phone. And I got to my office, sat down, put it in.
Okay, thanks.
What's your level of education?
I currently have a bachelor's degree in business administration, and I am working on my master's as we speak.
Okay. And what you mentioned that you'd like to volunteer coaching. Are there other boards you've served on or other ways you've served the community in a volunteer
I've served as
capacity?
a volunteer firefighter.
Okay.
Previously. That would have been 12 years ago, probably. I think I did that for about 3 or 4 years. That was when Kent Hawkins was the chief, and then it transferred over to Craig.
Mm-hmm.
And I got out of it before that. I just got really busy with work, and you just couldn't make the calls, and I felt like I was falling behind on training and things like that. So.
Cheryl?
Okay, so as you know, government works slower than we hope it would. And we push it along and we try and get things done. And you're up with a great group of people, 4 other people who help you make decisions and also get things done. And you have the mayor also that's a voice on the council. And so I'm just wondering if there was a time where you presented an agenda item and something you're passionate about and excited about, and you presented it and we all voted it down and it didn't pass. How would you react to that?
Well, of course, there's going to be disappointment, but I think there's reasoning behind 5 people making a decision versus 1 person making a decision. So I think the example is going to be the state tournaments. I brought that up and I've wanted that, but I'm one that will try again. Maybe I didn't have enough information. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence or enough information that everybody understood, or maybe I could have had Lisa stand up and talk about it as well. I know she was in that meeting when I first talked about it. But try again, understand what is needed. I'm very open to understanding more and more. When you talk about government being slow, I think the #1 way to speed up government is to understand the steps that it takes. And if you don't understand them and you miss a step, or you don't know it's there, things like that. So do the research, understand before you get it all together, understand what steps need to be taken.
Good, thank you. And then my last question is, if there was just one thing you could do over the next year to improve the city of Blanding as a city council member, what would you do? What would be that one thing?
I follow my gut, and the first thing that comes to mind is beautification. I think our Main Street beautification.
Okay, thank you.
Specific to Main Street beautification. I want people to drive into Blanding and be wowed. I want people to drive into Blanding, and just because we don't serve alcohol doesn't mean they won't stop at that restaurant. They won't, stop in to do something. You come in on the south end of town and, asking that people keep things clean, keep those weeds down. There's a couple sore spots that you see coming into town, things like that. City beautification, I think, is that eye appeal to people that, we have a lot of Airbnbs in town and people want to stay here, and so I would like to see them being welcomed in that way. That's the first thing they see.
Thank you.
So my question, I only have one, but it's kind of an answer, but I want you to maybe look deep. Why do you really want this spot? What's driving you to want this spot on the council?
And it's going to go back to COVID. I think COVID has changed. I think COVID's changed the way we think. I think COVID's changed the way we act. I think COVID's changed the way that we see how things can be done. And so I want to be on this to be part of that. I want to be part of the doers. I want to be part of the voice. I want to be part of understanding what we can do to do more. Is there more that we can do? I don't know. But putting in the research to understand, what can be done is something that I'm passionate about. I think that goes back to my background and how I got to where I am. I was the original electrician on Blue Mountain Hospital. I worked for Northern Electric. At that time, Eric Johnson passed away. And that's when the plane crash happened. I finished that project while David took care of David Johnson, the other David Johnson in town.
Probably the cool one.
My high school coach. Anyway, while he took care of getting the business stuff figured out, I was able to be a key part in finishing that job. Well, in 2009, the economy went downhill and I needed a job, and I took the leap of faith into a maintenance position at Blue Mountain Hospital 11 years ago. It'll be 12 years this year. During that time, finances were very low. They were pretty much non-existent. They couldn't hire anybody. So as a maintenance tech, I took on all sorts of responsibilities. I took over the materials management, and that's how I got into GPO and the group that I do. At the same time, I was a scrub tech for 3 years, just filling a spot. They needed somebody, so I filled that spot. Sat on many committees, from quality control to risk management to those things. David Lyman retired, or not retired, but moved jobs. And I took over as a facilities manager. I was still filling those other roles at the same time. I'm a guy that never backs down from a challenge. I accept all challenges pretty much. And a challenge of finding out how to do things better in my own personal life is one thing. And, you know, through that time, I got a bachelor's degree online while having 4 kids at home, and slowly moved up. And, you know, somebody had to quit for me to get the position that I am. And fortunately somebody did. And I find that as a true blessing. But I also find it as I put myself in the right spot at the right time and did the work to be able to do that. So, and
Thanks. Okay, thanks. Any other follow-up at all? Okay.
I'm trying to think of a challenge to challenge you to later.
I hate snow, so I don't have anything to do with snow.
I'll come up with a good one and I'll throw that to you.
Thanks, Trent.
Thank you.
Well, okay, so we have everybody come in and then you guys.
Let's leave them out there.
They don't want to. Oh, dang it.
They stayed. They stayed.
No,
Wow.
against the wall.
I just opened the door, is all.
You can get a picture.
How's that, Dave?
Yeah, to the right.
I need a number or something like that right here.
Well, okay.
I
So,
just want to say something really fast.
go
Like,
ahead.
I wish you all would have showed up a year ago so that I didn't have to be sitting here doing this right now. Any of you could have had my spot last year. I would have been happy to step down. I'm so pleased with the diversity of experience that you all have, the diversity of age ranges, and the only thing missing is a lady.
We had one.
Lynn, come on.
We had one.
Oh, wait, you work for the city. And we did have one, but then I'm grateful. I'm grateful that this many of you have stepped up and answered this call. And I truly hope that if you're not selected tonight, because this is super, super tough, that you really will run and that you'll take my seat in 3 years, please. Because it's time for there needs to always be a changing of the guard here. I don't think that we should all stick around here super long. That's how I feel. That's my own little soapbox.
Notice that, what you just did, I went through and I've done it twice. So understand, you know, what you're feeling, and if you're selected, that'll be great. If you're not, life will go on, run in the election. But, so I understand what you're feeling right now.
And I totally agree with Katie. I think every one of you are amazing. And this is tough. This is the second time we've done this, and I've sat in your shoes before too. And it is just as tough to be on this side of the table, because you're looking at a group of people that you highly respect. And you know that every one of them would be an excellent part of this council. And so it makes it really, really hard. And I'm with both of these people. If you are not selected, please run. I mean, that means you're running against me and Robert, actually. But you know, it's good to run, and it's good to give people options. And we need people to serve this community that are passionate about this community, and that's you guys. We need more people like you guys. So thank you so much for being here and going through this whole process. It means a lot, and I have a lot of respect for all of you.
It's my turn to go. So I mean, same thing. I just want to express my gratitude to everyone for coming to do this. I've done it twice as well. And it ended up working out the second time for me. And a great group of people. It makes it really hard for us. I wanted to have a clear answer tonight, and I can't say that I do. So, but I mean, when all of this is said and done, only one person gets the job, and hopefully the rest are still around to take some of our jobs. Because I agree, I don't think we should be here long. I think that should change often. And yeah, I don't know. It's rough. It's hard. There's a good group of people. I don't know what to do.
Mayor, do you mind if I take a second?
What's that?
Do you mind if I take a second?
Go ahead.
Whoever doesn't get in, I would love you guys to come talk with me and the mayor and see if there's other capacities within the city that we could use you to volunteer, help in other ways. I know a couple of you already are in some capacities, but we can always use good volunteers who are committed to the community.
So I spent the last couple of weeks thinking, okay, I know that usually if there's a tie, the mayor breaks a tie, and that is not the case. By law, the mayor doesn't vote on appointment of a city council member. And the struggle that the council has here, first of all, and I've been involved in a lot of appointments, and my sentiment about that has been, of all the decisions that a council member makes, this is the toughest one ever, because it is every other decision that will ever be made, as long as that council member sitting at this table. And so when I've been involved as a council member in those appointments, I've tried to contemplate and wonder, not who would I vote for, but who would the community have chosen? Because this is an election, but there's only 4 people going to vote. And the weight of that is pretty tremendous. So, and it didn't, I looked at the list and I thought, I might favor here, I was kind of wondering if I was going to vote. Y'all didn't make it any easier. It got a lot tougher because everybody represented themselves exceptionally well. And I'm really glad that I am not one of the ones voting. As everybody was kind of finishing up, I just said, I only wrote one comment. Wow. The last time we had an appointment made, there were 6 candidates, and I said we could have us dice and just roll it, and we wouldn't make a wrong choice. And the only change between then and now is we need an 8-sided die to roll, and whatever comes up, that number would be a good council member. And so I do not envy I do not envy these 4 people, and I respect them all a lot, but boy, they got this is a hard choice. There's not a wrong choice, but they have to make one. So it might take them a while. I said we would start the Jeopardy music, but it might last a little longer than the Jeopardy song. But I've asked them each to give me their vote in writing so that they can vote their conscience in that, but then they turn them in, and by state law, every vote it's a roll call vote. I will announce who voted for whom. That's the law, and good luck to everybody, and good luck to you, to the 4 of you up here. I don't envy your position. These are hard choices. They really are. So take your time.
things that I don't necessarily like about a roll call vote is that we don't get to express, I guess I'm going to now because I'd like to take this opportunity, but we don't get to express necessarily why we chose the person that we chose, and why we maybe chose them over other people. So for those of you, when he reads my vote, part of the reason I chose the person that I chose is because of the service that they have put into the community. And so for some of you who are newer, I would highly recommend that you take him up on his offer and get on boards. We honestly need you. We do. And I don't know how the vote's going to go, but for me personally, I would love to see everyone in this room get on a board of some kind for the city or the county or the community, because there tends to be just a few people trying to do all of everything, and it gets really overwhelming. And I think all of you would be excellent. So that would be my only recommendation as I'm going off of experience and service, and because every one of you in this room I could work with. So just FYI.
Excellent point. Like I say, man, I've made that vote. And it's a weighty decision. It is. And I know that everybody thinks about it long and hard. So Robert Turt votes for Sean Begay. Cheryl Bowers votes for Kellen Nilsson. Katie Perkins votes for Sean Begay. And Logan Monson votes for Kellen Nilsson.
That's awesome.
Now, the way the state code works on this is that it doesn't actually address this issue. The code does not address this. It addresses a tiebreaker if an appointment is not made by the 30th day after a resignation, which would be January 31st. On that day, any candidates meet with the council and do an interview like we have done, and there's a vote. And if nobody prevails, or if it ends up in a tie, then it is a game of chance to see who wins. But it doesn't speak to that issue if we have not reached our limit of 30 days. So in council with our city attorney, I've said, what if we have a tie? And we both agreed it would only make sense to exercise the intent of the Constitution. In this case, the same as we would if it would have been pushed to it by a deadline. And so it seems to be the most odd thing that you can possibly do to have a game of chance to decide council member. But we do have two that have obviously have a lot of support from council. And any one of the 8 would have been a very good candidate. So I'm going to turn it to Kendall. We're not doing dueling pistols, and he suggested that.
Did you want to give either of them an opportunity to speak before or a re-vote, or do you want to go straight to the game?
So I was going to actually add,
Right.
Mayor. So the way that the code reads is if
We will follow specifically this code.
right.
As though we were
The
doing
way
that.
the way that it reads is, I think there's another step that's in there, but
Okay.
it isn't clear how it fits into this scenario because it's not for this scenario. We're trying to figure out how it would fit. So the way that it would work, if it was with the 30-day deadline, would be that you would vote, and then the top 2 candidates or the tying candidates would be able to then address the council.
Because I wanted to do that.
So that is an option that's available, and I think it is in compliance with the law. We could do the game of chance, and that would probably be the game of chance right now, and that would probably be in compliance as well. But the other option would be that we could have the 2 that got the tie, give them, some set period of time to
Okay.
I guess try to break the tie, and then if not, then it would go to a game chance.
Who
So,
knows?
Well, I was hoping that that would be the
Right.
case.
and that is an option that's available. It is a little clunky because it's not tailored specifically for the scenario that we're in, but I think both options would be supported by the law.
Okay. I would like to hear from both of the standing candidates again. Now, this is a tough spot for y'all. Because, you know, you got to try to make a pitch and say why you're the better choice. And then how do we proceed on that vote then? Just ask for a roll call vote or ask somebody to make a motion to appoint one or the other?
It would be a vote the same way. It would be a roll call vote. So, and then if it's a tie again, then at that point it will be a game of chance. So I'll go find a straw. We'll start cutting it. We'll draw some straws.
Right?
Oh, boy.
Just do paper, rock, scissors.
It's not a game of chance though.
We can flip a coin.
Flip a coin. Flip a
But
coin.
who calls it?
I do.
We would assign one,
We
something.
can do that too.
Well, we heard from Sean first in the other order. Do we hear from Kellen now, or do we flip a
Yeah.
coin to see who we hear from? Okay. Katie says yes, that's one vote for Kellen. Kellen, go ahead.
Well, I appreciate your votes, thank you, and I agree, there's great candidates here, but I don't know, again, I just emphasize that point of community, I think it's important and might be part of it. I did think of a couple other, like you asked about agenda items I would focus on. One is affordable housing. I think there's kind of a problem right now with housing for lower income folks, particularly like newly married couples and things like that. So that's something I think is important to be addressed, and just promoting small business and business within the community is another thing. I'd appreciate the opportunity. I think I've got some experience that we could help the council and help the community, and like I said, I appreciate that opportunity. So thanks for your consideration.
Thanks. Sean? Probably gone up about 15 degrees where you're sitting.
All right, well, appreciate the opportunity, Gav. One thing I'd like to address, is just, as I mentioned before, like learning opportunity and everything, and on top of that, like bringing some diversity to the city council here. I know that, being Navajo and everything, that's a big thing, for them to be able to relate to somebody, of their own kind, like maybe in the city council. Like having somebody, that they can, I guess you could say, rely on, and I feel like they can bring issues to that I can bring to the city council, and maybe, help give that voice, that might not be heard, like representation here, I think is important and everything. On top of that, like I mentioned before, I have never, served in a board capacity or city council capacity. I think this would be great, opportunity to learn. And obviously, like learning from a great group of people and everything, I think it's awesome. Not a native here of Landing, but I've grown to love it and everything. Sense of community is great and everything. I realize how strong, like family is here, community and everything. I want to continue that as much as we can, even in the face of this terrible pandemic that we're facing. So yeah, that's all I have to add right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So Kendall, would you recommend we just hand these papers back and let them contemplate this again and see how we come back? That works for you? Okay, Robert and Katie.
I think so.
Logan. It's not getting any easier.
So I'm sorry, let me just, this is really important. So if we choose not to change our votes, we are going to flip a coin.
Yeah. And you have the state legislature to thank for that. I just want to
Good
make that clear.
heavens.
They enumerated several ways. You can draw straws, flip a coin, high card off a deck, or any game of chance. It seemed bizarre, but I don't know how else you would do it.
Would that be a first for the city to do that? That you know of?
Yeah.
We're making history right here.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, there might have been something way back, but I've read a lot of those old minutes and I've never encountered it.
2021.
Or something like that.
Doesn't it worry you that the year is actually called 2021?
Exactly.
I like that.
I watched two people will change their votes. Wouldn't that be something? Oh, boy. This is hard.
And the real question will be, does anyone even carry change anymore? Do we have a coin to fit?
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Well,
question.
okay. We have a tie. So proceed with your, whatever you have.
I think I got a coin in
I
my
was gonna
wall.
say,
You know what? There's actually some coins, collector's coins in the office here.
Perfect. Like a Super Bowl.
I think that you call it.
Yeah.
For one, tells
Right.
for the other. That's how it's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna stand too.
I think I have a
We
giant
still
headache.
have more stuff to go through, right? It was a pretty good crowd of candidates, so.
Hey, Mayor, we have a quarter or a coin that says City of Blanding on it, so you choose.
We'll go with that one. We need to look at it and
Fancy
identify
one?
which one is gonna be.
Okay, you assign who's what side.
Okay, we got a guy playing a trumpet and we've got,
There's one side.
military.
What's the wording? One that
Yeah,
says City of
City
Blanding.
of Blanding on one side and the tribute to the ultimate sacrifice on the other.
That's what we give to our.
Okay, City of Blanding will be heads and that will be Sean Begay.
Okay.
And we will never forget will be tails and that will be Kellen. This is just so weird. But I don't know what else, I don't know what else the legislature could have come up with. So this is like a Super Bowl theme. And it'll be,
Tribute.
it is, we will never forget, which was tails, which is Kellen. In the running, I want to see everybody.
We got openings on the planning commission.
So, yeah, Mayor, Council, that's what I was gonna say, this creates a vacancy on the planning commission. So,
Kellen, guys, really appreciate it.
our second term is
Everybody
filled
was
out.
just very
Make sure you apply.
Any of them, right?
Being that we all applied, you should have our email. Do you want to send an email list of those places that maybe you need somebody?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's a good
There'll be
idea.
one position coming open on the planning
COVID
commission.
friendly and.
Yeah.
And I don't know of any other that are open right now. The
So-
two most active boards are the planning commission and the rec board, and they recently had spots filled. But any that come up, yeah, we'll,
Well, I can even talk to department heads and see if there are needs, volunteer needs that maybe we could use. But I would say for sure, there's a planning commission vacancy now, Kellen, so.
There's a library board position for the county open, and anyone who wants to be a part of the travel council or the kind of economic development meetings we have, please
oh, yeah, I'll get there eventually.
join.
Okay. Mayor, do you want to proceed with the swearing in? Or I guess, would you like to wait till next council for family or anyone?
Let's
Okay.
get it done.
Do it. We can do the
Alright.
swearing in and put you to work.
All right.
I can't take up the whole table.
We'll have you finish filling this after the swearing in.
I have kind of a hierarchy. This is one election cycle. This is another election
But now they're
cycle
on ours.
in order of seniority.
This one's just gonna be on a weird one
It's
now.
just on.
He's
So,
with us, right?
let's do it this way. So my back and you're facing the camera.
Yeah.
So essentially you put your left hand on the Bible and right arm. Say, I
I,
state your name,
Kellen Nielsen,
having been elected or appointed
having been elected or appointed
to the office of city council member
to the office of city council member
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and obey
that I will support and obey
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Write your name here, sign there.
Sure, Robert.
Would you like to take any sort of recess before we dive into stuff, or?
We could use a break.
Okay.
So all this,
Join us.
all this call a recess. So we will recess for 5 minutes.
Please keep in mind, we're still recording, and so it's still.
We can talk, well, yeah. They can-
I'm like, oh, here I am. Didn't work all day.
That's great school. You were impressive.
Trent, are you gonna be a part of the discussion about the dirt?
Is it tonight? Yeah.
Yeah, be a part of this.
No.
I would love to be bad one.
A little, yeah. A lot.
Is there an agenda?
No, I mean,
Like, there's been letters of support that's
No, I
been.
get
submitted.
Yeah, I've seen it.
No, he is really, because I
and so, so I don't feel like, I didn't that I also thought.
It's 9 o'clock. Holy moly.
I don't know if you shake hands.
I do, I got sanitizer, so.
Thanks for running again, please.
I feel like we've got another 3 hours.
Yes.
Dave, you're last.
And then not be deciding,
I know.
but it kind of is.
But,
These two were my top choice.
Yeah, it has a much more.
Literally any of the less comfortable.
you have the worst chair, just so you know,
That's okay.
because the TV's behind you. So you can't ever see anything.
I mean, I've been there the whole time, and I can't change my vote. I really don't know the way to do it.
Congratulations.
More condolences. You might discover that it's not so fabulous. Condolences is what I said, but I'm just.
Only addresses the situation.
Oh,
If
well,
you
yeah.
All the meetings are really fun.
which we haven't hit, so
Well, I've been through it too.
I guess you're just changing the meetings that you'll have to visit.
Well, I think I'm still going to.
What else?
Oh. Maybe, we'll see.
Who would I want to? I know as it came down to it, that these two were my two favorites. I will tell you that.
It was good. It was good fun.
I got a feeling that
And I
too.
think,
I would like, I'd love to see Sean get more active in the community. I think that'd be awesome.
Try not to take over the whole table here. That's how
You already
it is.
you already have.
I know, I'm gonna try.
Hey, the first rule is she always makes a motion for us to dismiss, so.
And then the rest of you say that you second it as fast as you can so we can get out of here. Let's do it right now. It's 9 o'clock.
I don't think so.
Dang it.
I'm kind of glad my agenda item didn't get on here.
Yeah, and we can always table anything you want. So, we might get through, we might go through it really quick.
Project list, which is the baseball field. So I'm kind of here. My wife may not like me when I get.
Within 5, well, we gotta get our.
Gotta wear off. Where it is.
We'll take it in order.
Yeah, the baseball? Okay. Oh, yeah. Good. Well, first.
I think the most awesome thing about
Since we didn't
baseball dirt,
approve
which to me it's like, it's dirt, so I don't get it, and it's baseball, so I don't get it. Was that the sheer volume of letters, so educational, and they were, you use that one too, and they were good letters. They were just like, I don't dirt. Yeah, it was.
You could just get you a piece of paper and write your name on it if you want. Hold it fast.
Hey, does he have a copy of the agenda though? Well. That would be helpful.
Have you had a chance to read it yet?
You've got it.
All right, have we been 5 minutes? Probably. Okay, let's keep it rolling. So point of order, we have people here that want to speak to the baseball infield dirt. We moved the 2 agenda items to the top and then approved that agenda. So the technical question is, under Robert's rules, can we keep juggling the agenda once it's been approved? Got an opinion on that, Dave? If we wanted to move baseball to and just do it now?
I think that's your discretion, Mayor, to be able to do that.
All right. I was hoping you were going to say that because that uses people's time more effectively. So barring any objection from the council, we will move baseball up to right now, and then we will follow the agenda out as outlined after that. So discussion item, baseball infield dirt, Dave.
One Mayor, Council, why don't I kind of start it off? So obviously this was brought to our attention through Councilmember Monson about the need to identify the issues with dirt, the infield dirt to be specific. And so I spoke with my staff when I was in Saratoga Springs to get a little more information. David Palmer and I have spoken a little bit about that. I think the big question, and that's what David's looked into, he can ask a little bit more, is what is the true cost? Do we only need to dig an inch, or is it more than that? And even if we replace that inch, what's the maintenance on that over time, and what's the cost associated with that maintenance? There's a few nuances that I found, and after David kind of talks a little bit, I'll tell you about some of the nuances that I learned. Well, I might as well just tell you now. So some of the nuances that I learned in speaking to staff in Saratoga Springs is they bought Dura Edge. They bought the best kind of dirt. It's what you see at the Bees Stadium and everything. But similar to Blanding, Saratoga Springs is very, very windy with wind coming off the mountain. And so maintenance, because with the way the dirts are, they're mixed in a certain way, and that top silt is supposed to help you be able to slide safely. Well, it's a nightmare to maintenance. And so what they've done is they actually pay for, they pay a monthly fee each month, so that Dura Edge will just come out and replace as long as they're paying. It's almost like an insurance, and they'll come out and do it as much as you want. Well, I'm talking to the guys who actually maintenance it. They say, as much as the problem is with the wind blowing it away, they're still not sure if the cost that Dura Edge charges for that is worth them coming out to the city. And so that's part of what David's been looking into. And if I understand right, David's spoken with Dura Edge, and they're going to come out in a couple of weeks to give an on-site kind of perspective on it. So I'll just kind of turn it to David and let him give you some more perspective.
So, real quick, I'm glad it's finally got to this point. This is something that 10 years ago was one of the first things that we put on budget items as far as future projects to identify. It kind of kept getting pushed because it was something that we already had that we were using, as opposed to spending money on new items that we didn't have. And so, but now that it's kind of come to the forefront, I'm
all in with doing whatever I can to help this happen. However, some of the paperwork or some of the things that have been done in reading through all the communication of the emails leading up to this point, it's been suggested about a 1-inch top to put on to take out 1 inch, which in my opinion, that is putting lipstick on a pig. If we put 1 inch of this expensive topsoil on 6 inches of that stuff that shouldn't be there, it's gonna work its way in over time. Maybe the first year we're gonna love it and think it's great, but as we condition that field, every time we're gonna bring back up that stuff that we hate. If we're gonna do it, I really think in all transparency, we need to do it right, so that some of the costs that might have been thrown out there at the beginning, boy, that would be nice if we could do that for $8,000, but that's just not a reality. So I don't want to go into this and have some people still thinking that can really happen. In doing that though, it also gives us some time. There's just no way we could do this before this fall season. We've got high school about ready to start, and then we go in directly after them. So if we were to do this in the recommendation I put in the packet, I think we really wouldn't be able to do this until about the first week of July. In that time, we could have these ducks in a row, and if you guys like the findings, I have a representative from Dura Edge coming within the next 2 weeks, he said, to really what we need to do is go out in several spots in the fields and dig holes, see how deep of the stuff that we have there now, and see what we need to replace. Because if we just put a topsoil on that, I think we would really make a huge mistake doing that. Not only that, but when I talked to him on the phone, I let him know everything that we know at this point, and he said he wouldn't even recommend something. He said the bare minimum would be 2 inches, and that would be making sure it was already put on a firm foundation or something that was working well. But this lava rock that we have, there's a lot of people in this room that have spent a lot of time on these fields, and you can stand in those fields as a basement or whatever, and you could kind of work your way down into the soil and sink yourself, which is, I mean, that's not a baseball field. So it's been an issue that's been a safety issue for a long time too. You really cannot judge a ball coming off that stuff. So I'm really glad that we're having this discussion. I'm pretty excited about it, and I'm glad that we've got this far. So just throwing that out there. But until we really know how many inches we're talking about and some things like that, having a true cost, we just don't know. Cost really varies. It's not necessarily the product itself. The product itself I found was very reasonable, but it's the trucking to get that much here, the heavy equipment work, hauling the stuff that's there out. They've already talked with Sondragers that they have the equipment that they could haul this stuff out and laser focus it to make sure that it's exact, so that when they come in, that could save us money too, because they're local, but we wouldn't have to travel and some of those things installed. But so we'll have a lot better idea as soon as we can get somebody down here in person. It's really hard to know. I'm not qualified to make that guess, and I wouldn't want to try to, but I think they'd want to come and dig some test holes in every one of those fields to know what we're working with. Because they wouldn't want to make a recommendation over the phone either without having their hands in it.
And I think to add to that, one of the things that David and I spoke about is just kind of looking at this and wanting to make sure we do it right, because I think, like David said, we're in support of this and we're grateful that the community is in support of it. We just want to do it right. And so in doing it right and taking that time, we can take care of other things that maybe are prioritized in the meantime, like shade structures at the ballpark. Might be a more immediate priority that we could address now while we're doing our homework on the dirt, and can address that in the next go around pending the council's decision. So that's some of the discussion.
Yeah, I just didn't want to rush right into this because it was a little bit more involved as soon as I started digging into it than I thought, which I'm kind of glad, because if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. It really is a renovation of the infield dirt. It's not a patchwork or anything else. It was, call it what it is, it would be a renovation.
It's not just having field dirt from the field over there.
I'm guessing that the council's interested enough that we need to do the homework to see, okay, what numbers are we really talking about? the cost of getting it done, the ongoing maintenance costs, how thick does it really need to be to work right? The whole, we need to gather a lot more information before we know for
Are
sure
there
that we're moving
specific
on it.
questions or things you'd like us
So
to?
thing I'd like
Real,
to say,
real quick though, go on.
well, last meeting, it really didn't mean anything to me because I've not played ball on that. I've watched grandkids play on it, but I went out there and actually looked at what it was. And so, yeah, I understand what you're talking about now. And yeah, but I think let's talk about this through our homework, but it means a little more to me now because I actually went there and looked at it and touched it and looked at, I sent a picture, I think some of the council members, it's pretty rough stuff.
And we'd be spending enough that obviously we would need to get a few bids from other companies. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, but having them come here sure gives us a starting point. When the fields were put in the first time, I don't want to insult anybody in the community. I don't know that anybody here is really qualified to build a brand new baseball field. There's a lot more to it that I've learned just in doing my research here than I ever thought. And I have a general knowledge of this stuff, but when it comes to building those fields and the compaction and all these different things, it was way over my head. So it's been a real eye opener for me as well. And we, not only that, but when they come in, anybody we use, we'd want to work with closely with myself and Brian Bilbo as far as future maintenance and proper care of it. Right now, we've had, like, I think you've seen that there's about 14 letters of encouragement to do this project from concerned community members, and I appreciate that. One of the things that they addressed in those letters was the lack of maintenance, what we have, and not necessarily maintenance, but proper maintenance of baseball fields. And they're absolutely right. For us to have some real training from these professionals on how to put these fields to bed, because what we have now, as soon as we're done with our seasons, we don't have the manpower to take care of these year round as far as some of the conditioning and some of this stuff that has to happen year round. 6 months of the year, we have some volunteer summer help, but when it becomes the skeleton crew that we have now over the winter time, the fields do get neglected for several months out of the year. And it's a true statement. So
to add to that, in Saratoga Springs, we have 3 fields or 4 total? 4 fields. In Saratoga, we had 6, and we had 2 full-time employees just for the baseball fields to properly maintenance them. And so Brian, he oversees not just the maintenance of the fields, but all of our parks as well as all of our city facilities. And so we would like that, but in considering updates to this, we also need to consider the manpower that it's going to take to properly maintenance them to the level that we want. So of course, all those are budgetary concerns. And so we're going to have to not just look into the replacement of the infield and stuff, but we're going to have to take into consideration what those maintenance costs are going to be from manpower perspective, as well as the product. And so just know that we're going to come to you. The funny part is, it sounds
even
like
if we don't do this though, Dave, there's still maybe some education to be involved to better maintain what we already have if the council decides not to go this direction. But we kind of do, we're like jacks of everything, experts at nothing, because we do enough to get by because we're spread so thin with the city, and Blanding has prided itself. We've done so much with so little for a long time. And we've really gotten by for a long time, but nothing is pristine like it should be. It's taken care of, but it could be done a lot better. We can do a lot better, but we just don't have, we're stretched in so many different directions. We can't give it the attention that it needs, but, and that's on us. Maybe it can be a time management thing, but we go from one season to the next, and that's where all of our focus is.
So that's some of the internal discussions that we can have in the coming year as we're getting these initial findings. We can evaluate how can the time management and staff be accommodating for this, and if it can't, what is the need to present to you to then make a policy decision in that manner. So.
And with your direction, I'd like to pursue as much information on this as I can so that I can, so any questions you're firing at me, I'm going to have all those answers. And that starts with having somebody that's in this field and in this profession coming down here and getting his hands on it. and giving us a start.
So I think the main questions that we have, and I guess we're looking for you, because this is supposed to be a discussion portion, is we're going to look at what is the need for replacement? What's the cost associated with that need? What's the maintenance of the product itself? And then what's the manpower it's going to take? Those are the four main things that I and David have identified. I don't know if there's other questions that as DuraEdge.
The other is the donations that people are willing to make donations to get the transition made. The ongoing maintenance would be on us, so that's another element. And so when we have more information on all those things, then we can look at it, but that's going to take some time to get it.
Right.
So.
And so again, just to reiterate or clarify, we're saying it's a bigger project than we thought, and that's why we're not just pushing it through right now, because I mean, we have these 14 letters, we have these people that are saying, why isn't this done before the sports season starts, right? So we need to clarify that's why, because it's bigger than we thought. And also that we need to be able to have those seasons, and we don't have any idea how long it's going to take to do something like this. And we need to do it during a time that we can have those fields available. Okay.
And we can reach out to those individuals and kind of help explain that to them. You know, I'm sure if you're passionate about something, you won't be happy to say, we've got to wait longer. So we anticipate that, but we appreciate their passion. And so we want to utilize and leverage that passion to help move something positive forward. But we'll help mitigate that with those individuals and help educate them on that too.
Some of their encouragement and offering of donations has brought us to this point, which is great. So.
Well, and I've talked, and one thing I don't want to do is say, yeah, it's too big, we're not going to do it right now. Maybe in 2 weeks they come and they say, you know, really, this is your issue and this is the cost, and it's maybe less than what we think it is. And I don't want to completely put the idea away that, it's too big, it's going to cost too much, July is when we'll do it. And I've talked to David about this as well. Likely that will be the possible, I mean, what we're going to have to do. We don't want to cut anyone's season off by starting a project that will essentially benefit their season and not have a season. There's lots to put together.
I'd rather be surprised on the cost.
Yeah, and I have no way to,
expectations.
like anybody, to say, yeah, this is what it's going to be. So I mean, we do need that before we can do
I wanted full transparency here. Didn't
We
want
need to set some deadlines. That's what I think. We need to say, the next meeting, we're gonna have numbers, whatever that, or the meeting after, whatever that is. We need to have those numbers so we can make some decisions and not keep this carried.
So we can do
When
that.
does the baseball season start? Is it February?
They're already doing open gym.
Well, high school and softball, which the softball field would for sure, but they start their season in March.
March?
First game's gonna be the first weekend of March.
So what we can do is we can, when DuraEdge comes out here, we can get any kind of initial numbers. It may take them, they're gonna be here in 2 weeks, but it may take them a couple weeks to even get us a quote. And so we'll find out in 2 weeks from them when they can have a quote to us by. And then what we can do is in staff reports
I
or.
don't know if they can push it up, we'd like it in the second meeting in February.
Sure.
And the other thing is, we're the customer
Give them
here,
a-
so
give
I
them a
mean,
timeline.
if they want us to use their service, then we can give them some dates as well. I don't think we need to play hardball or anything, but I think that we can say this is what we'd like.
I just
Can you
want to
make it
caution
happen?
us that they're coming out here to give us estimates, but they may not be, if we have to go to bid, they actually might not be who we get.
Correct,
So
yeah.
we just want to be sensitive to them giving us that coming out here and spend, but I agree. We'll tell them kind of what our timeline is to help make some decision, try and speed it along, I think. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to.
No, I just wanted to bring you up to speed as to.
Yeah.
where
I
we're at with it.
hate to make it sound like we're trying to make it sound like so big, so let's not do it, because
Oh,
I
no,
don't think that's
I-
in the intent.
No, I'm just saying that often happens, so I want to make sure that
100%
we're aware
in.
that, yeah.
We just want to, like David said, be transparent and not go in blindly.
And I would love if there's any community members who have studied and understand the dirt a little better than we do. I would love to hear from them too, if there's somebody, because maybe we don't need this dirt edge. Maybe we just need to bring in dirt and take 2 inches off and replace it. Maybe it's not as hard as we're making it either. We don't know, but.
And we'll find other
Maybe
companies
the
in
recreation.
addition to DuraEdge too. There are other companies out there.
Yeah.
So.
I think that what David's learning though is it is complicated. It's like, you don't put together a golf course and just have a 12-year-old mow the lawn, mow the greens. Like each green has specific needs, and that's what we're discovering. It sounds like about dirt at a baseball field, which again is
If
just,
we do this, it's gonna severely
Unique to me.
improve everything that we have, but on that demands a lot more out of us as well, which is.
So my question is, the high school uses our fields, right? But what participation do they have in this?
That's something we can talk to them about.
Are we going to talk to them?
It's been my plan to talk to them. I just haven't gone to them because we haven't had dates, we haven't had times, we haven't had, this is really
They need to be a player too.
I agree.
They do some maintenance on them though.
During the season,
Yeah.
they help with some maintenance. I don't know if it's complete maintenance. I don't.
Well, that's just another question on there, and we gotta.
I thought that we had an agreement with them that we're allowed to use their fields for our adult softball and things like that, and that's the trade. Is
Yeah,
that
but
they
the
maintain.
trade-off is really like this.
Okay.
Years ago.
So it's
before
not
we had our
mutually
own
beneficial, but it
facilities,
used to be.
It used to, they were the big brother in the relationship years ago, and we were dependent on them for everything that we did in recreation. Well, roles have changed. We have our own facilities for basketball, so we don't use their gym space anymore and haven't
Okay.
done for 10 years. The only thing that we use of theirs is the old ball fields by the bus barn,
Mhm.
and we use that for youth football because they have lights and co-ed softball. And so,
We just have to revisit the.
yeah, so the agreement is
We'll reach out.
we become the big brother in the relationship, so to speak, but there's been such a good relationship for years. And that's why previous councils have always been, well, they were so good to us for so many years. You know, we don't want to necessarily throw this at them, but I mean, we have some very real costs associated with doing these things as well.
So
And I guess my second question is, Logan, what's the total amount of dollars that people have offered to donate?
As of right now, it's the
5,000.
5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah, at one point, and the letter's there and it's in the packets. And so he had mentioned that he had gone out a couple times to talk to people and had more money lined up, and then COVID happened and everything else happened. And he kind of just left it at that, but is willing to look into that more if we need that.
So for sake of just time and with the meeting, what I'm thinking is we're meeting Third Edge, we'll reach out to the school. Councilmember Monson, if you want to join us maybe in those discussions, you're welcome. And we'll try for the second meeting in February to bring numbers from an estimate from Dura Edge, and if any others can give us estimates. The manpower hours, and that is probably going to take us a little more time for analysis, and we're going to have to gather more information. So I'm not sure on the deadline of that, but I think at least those three things: reaching out to the school. 4 things: reaching out to the individuals who sent letters, and then the Dura Edge and everything we can follow up on.
These guys stay, and I don't know if they have anything to say. I don't.
Well,
I would like to add to it. I mean, I think it
Yeah,
pertains
I
to some of what you said.
It's on the agenda.
Well, if it's something that we're not already investigating, or we're gonna be talking to the school district, and we're gonna
It's
be
something you're not
exploring these things.
So
I'd like
this,
to hear from
this is a discussion portion, which doesn't have a public comment section, but we were having,
But we can
but it's
invite-
up to the mayor's discretion, so.
Yeah, if it's something that we're missing, but you can bring that up with Logan too, so. Is there,
I'd like to hear your
are we missing a point that we're
Yeah,
not
something
asking
that we
for an
didn't-
answer yet?
That we haven't covered.
Sure, I think there's two main points that are being missed. One is the effort and the donation of time to remove all the dirt is already gathered. Heavy equipment, trailers. David Perkins has offered to haul the dirt for free from Cedar City, St. George area. He owns a trucking company. He's offered to haul that for free to Blanding. You know, all those little things. But I think the important thing is the high school baseball field is done. That is the dirt that we're looking for.
That's not necessarily true.
So
So we have conditioned it in
Hold on.
2018, but it's not.
So the high school baseball team that had zero to do with helping out
Ryan and Palmer did have something to do with that. They have a lot to do with that. And so you giving them no credit is wrong.
I'm talking about the
So-
future of these things.
So
You don't,
you
put
gave them a
words in my
zero.
mouth.
You gave the high school teams a zero, but the
Okay,
baseball field is done.
this discussion is for this table.
Yeah,
But I think we need to look at the baseball field because that is what we're talking about. That is the project we're talking about. So one field is what we're looking at. It's already done.
So Trent, I think it would be good maybe for you and I to discuss some of those terms, just for sake of Robert's rules in the meeting.
So the baseball field, we don't have to do anything on.
My understanding is no. So what,
Well, I guess we can hear from the professionals too, but
what's
that's
the maintenance
good
on
to
that?
know.
Because
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's being missed is what's the maintenance on that?
One point that I would bring out is, we can utilize volunteer help in some ways, but we also have to, consider the liability to the city of having volunteer help with trucks and bulldozers and things like that. So that's just a one point of consideration. So.
We can look at it, but they carry their own liability, so.
Right, we would have to
It's
mitigate
it's
that.
questions that we can answer, that we're not gonna answer tonight, but we need to follow up on all these questions, so the next time we're talking about, we got a lot better picture of it. So we got our marching orders and we know where we should be, and we'll know more in 2 weeks, FYI, and then 4 weeks from now, hopefully, we've got some real meat that we can take a look at. Cool. Okay, good there?
I'm good.
Jumping back up to reports.
Thanks, David.
This is a new section in here. You may or may not have any report. We've kind of drifted to information with what would show up here. And so if you're serving on committees or boards and there's something of significance or something of particular interest that you want to report, we throw it in here. A lot of times we might say there might be nothing in this section and we just move right through it. So I didn't have any particular reports. So does anybody else on council have any reports relative to their areas of assignment and so forth?
I don't.
Anything from administration then?
Not that's not in the discussion items.
Okay. Project status report.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
have one thing. Our staff member Bailey was in a car accident where she rolled her foot. So she's been to the doctor. She's okay. I don't want to give too much personal information, but just to make you aware. So she's out temporarily right now.
Was that personal or work? What's it like?
She headed home from work. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, project status, Terry Ecker. You still
Okay,
would like-
Mayor and Council, let's blow through this thing fast.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to totally revamp it because most of these projects we've finished, but the storm drain project, we finished the work down there south of San Juan building that we committed to do for the easement from Richard Perkins. And so we're totally finalized with that. And we'll just kind of wrap up the funding as soon as we get a bill on that work. On the transportation master plan, we will present that to city council on February 23rd. And we can finalize that project. The water conservation plan update, hopefully we can get that approved tonight. And the new membranes, filter membranes at the water treatment plant have been installed. So we've wrapped that project up now. And that concludes my project status report, if there aren't any questions.
I don't think there's questions, but also it wasn't in the packet, but we know what's there.
That's on me.
Okay, I'm gonna call Kelly and tell him.
Thanks, Terry.
Financial status, Kim Palmer.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're still awake. Do you have any questions on the financial status report or the invoices that were listed with it? And
We're really weak on your mic.
You might need to speak a little closer, Kim.
oh, sometimes it works really well and sometimes it doesn't. So can you hear me better now?
No, but we got plenty of room in here too.
I got my notes in here. Turn me up, Brad.
Oh, there we go. He did.
It just sounds muffled.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I need to step in.
Yeah, you're welcome to step in. There's only a few.
yeah, you're good. It sounds like you're in a glass room with all the doors closed. Much better.
Do you have
much
any
better.
questions for me on the financial
I
status
had one.
report?
I had one on this, where you put the footnote, the county marketing grant expense. So if I understood it correctly, what we're showing there is a greater expense because a grant came in. So this is gonna have to be a budget adjustment at some point to say, oh, we got grant money and we spend it, therefore we're over budget. It's a third from the bottom line there.
Kim, is this where we're at right here?
Yeah. No,
Because we can't overspend the budget, but we did because we got grant money, which was not in the budget. So it's gonna have to be a budget adjustment. to put
I
the
really
money
think
in.
that's my error. I think that's wrong. I don't think that should have been on the bottom there because we have not got any county marketing grant funding this year.
Well, so then that column's way over budget then. in that
And I
case.
think that number's incorrect. Let me resend that out to you because that doesn't even look close to right.
Are we talking
For
about
the
visitor
budget
center
or
loan?
the expenses?
The
Period.
expenses are wrong. We haven't done 82,000 in the
Was-
visitor center this
Well,
year.
I
Some of it
wondered
be the
about
COVID?
that.
No, the COVID is in with the administration stuff.
Oh, so it didn't get lumped into the
No.
visitor center?
This does say January 2020. I wonder if it really is January 2020.
Oh,
Just
Instead of
like our police
2021.
report last time.
You know what? I printed
I'll bet
this
it
3
is.
different times and I bet I printed the wrong one the last time.
Oh, no.
Dave, do you remember yesterday?
No, it's
Let's
all
go
blur.
to the next.
If it's
meeting.
a blur for him, it must be really
Let's
bad for
table
you.
it For the next. meeting.
Yeah,
That'd be my
it's all good.
recommendation.
Well,
I
so we do
apologize.
have it.
I printed it 3 different times and I got the wrong one the last time. My bad.
So let's just include it on the agenda for the next agenda and we'll have
Thanks,
the
Kim.
correct one.
That would make more
Thank you,
sense.
Kim.
I
Yeah, I know.
I've got it in my notes.
Ever?
Ever?
I sent
Yeah,
them a-
first, only mistake ever. Good job.
I'm serious, I printed it like 3 times.
Okay. Discussion on discussion items.
Okay, so mayor and council, this is an interesting item because in the other cities that I've been in, there are some items that you want to bring before the council just to discuss, just to get feedback. You don't want any kind of risk of a motion being made because it's formally on the agenda, if that makes sense, because staff needs more time to research, et cetera, et cetera. However, discussion items in a general meeting like this, and even now, you can make a motion at any time, have it seconded and voted for because it's on the agenda. So there's 2 ways to work with that. One is we could just hold a work session right, if there's discussion items, a work session right before city council meeting and go from the work session into a discussion section. Or the second item is to create a discussion item section in the agenda. But to do that, we actually would have to create and approve a formal policy in the general session that states discussion items during the general section are not up for motion. So we can go through the process of creating that policy and establishing it, and that we've checked with our city attorney, or we can just do a work session that our regular session immediately follows without having to create a policy. And talking to the mayor, his preference, and maybe I'll let you speak for yourself, is to have the discussion items in the general section so we don't have to go through the formalities of starting a meeting, ending a meeting. You could design it so there's no gap between the 2 meetings, but so an easy way to do that is we would just need to come back if this is the direction the council as a whole wants to give us. So this is just basically consent. All I need is from the council to go back, formalize a policy, bring it to you stating discussion items are not up for motion during a general meeting per city code, and then you approve that code. But I need feedback, and the mayor and I need feedback. what your preference is, which direction we can go
Well,
either
the
way.
reason I prefer leaving it as this, the way we have it in this agenda now, and then having the policy written that says items listed as discussion items are for discussion only, no motion could be made. A couple of things, because I think you get into some timing issues as far as when does the meeting start. And so if you have a work meeting, maybe the work meeting's 10 minutes because nothing's up. Maybe it's an hour and 45 minutes. When does the public show up for the general meeting? So that concerns me. And the other one is, like we did tonight, we moved 2 items to the top of the agenda. So the only way you could do that is start the work session, close the work session, open the general session, and move those items into it, then close the general session and reopen the work session.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
the flexibility of that to me is a problem. And it seemed like it would be really easy to just create the policy that says we don't make motions on discussion items. If you had an item you wanted to bring forward that you thought might involve a lot of discussion, but you thought we might arrive at a motion, you put it in as an action item in the business.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a policy. I think that,
Yeah.
I think we want more public participation. And when you have a big work, just like that, when you have a work session before, then you've just wasted 2 hours of people's time for us to
Right.
discuss something that they didn't want to come and learn about. And not that city government isn't fascinating and we should all be involved, but
The crowd has thinned out.
yeah.
So the one thing that I would note, and I think, we kind of saw that here, work session items and discussion items are, there's no public input during those sessions. That's just for feedback from the council. Now, we as staff and you as council can bring feedback that you've received from the public or that we've received from the public or vendors or contractors or consultants. But that discussion is just for the council. And we kind of saw a little bit of the reasoning why we don't want to get in a back and forth with residents who are upset, because residents, after the discussion item, when it's brought to the agenda, then that's when residents have the opportunity to voice their opinion before motions are made. And that's how Robert's rules and the formalities of it.
But if we're doing both in the same meeting, they don't get that opportunity.
They
That's
would-
my concern.
They would in the
We don't
public
get
hearing.
enough public input as it is, and we need to make them feel welcome and valued while they're
So
here.
they would. So at the beginning of the meeting, we have an open-ended public input. And for the discussion items, so what you would say is there any public input for items not on the agenda up for motion? And the discussion items, they could then make their voices heard at that time.
So if it was under an agenda item or an action item, they could stand during public comment and speak.
No, they could, so how it would work is, so you have discussion items coming up, or first you do public input, and you say, is there any public input to any items not listed under business items up for motion? So basically anything discussion items or something out of left field, they can make comment and public input.
Right.
So if they have input on business items, they would just wait until that business item to give their input related
But
to
that's
that
what
business.
I thought we were trying to do tonight, and you didn't allow it.
Well, that's because public input was already done as far as Robert's Rules meeting. So if they wanted to make comments about the baseball fields from the discussion section, they should have done that during the public meeting session. Now, the mayor has the discretion to reopen public input if he wants. That's always left to the mayor's discretion, but only the mayor's discretion to do that. So there, you see there's these formalities, but there's flexibilities and ways to work with them. So there's always an opportunity for the public to make comments.
And I understand it now after you explained it. I was slightly confused in the sense of like this discussion items versus business items, and
Right.
it makes more sense now
Yeah.
to me.
And then that way too, like if there's something that the council wants to just discuss, you're not ready to make a motion because so-and-so from the school said this to you and you want to learn more about this and want to know, does the council have any other input? And then as a council, you can give consent to staff. Yeah, staff, go look into that. Now, one distinction that I'll make is this is not the same as reports. So if you have a report about a board you're on in the community and you just want to tell about that and ask staff, could we look at this more? That's fine. But if you want to have a full discussion beyond that, then that would actually need to be agenda'd under discussion items. So, sorry, there's a lot of technicalities with it.
Well, and just though another clarification, because like when we have members of the public come, because they see what our agenda is and they're concerned that we're talking about appointing someone to planning commission, let's say that, you know, really the time for them to talk about that is in that open public comment portion.
Yeah.
Because that's what they came for. The difference is I invited a member of the public that is an expert on the planning commission that wants to come and tell me what, you know, why.
Right.
Yes,
Right, that's why-
you can do that. So
That's a difference we're
always
talking about, and I think
Yes.
maybe that was some of the confusion here is I'm not sure if those people were invited specifically to talk about that or if they chose to stay.
So what we would need to do in that
And so-
situation is, so say there's a consultant or someone in the community.
That's the difference.
That would need to be identified under the discussion section that so-and-so from the community is coming to present on this for the council to then discuss and staff to consider. But to be honest, a lot of times, and that's why I just invited Trent to, you know, why don't him and I discuss a little bit of that? Because a lot of times it's best to have them meet with us as staff, and then we can say, okay, here's the perspective from the consultant or this individual in the community.
Exactly.
And then go from there and run it through staff. But if the mayor chooses or, you know, I as the city administrator recommend, hey, we should really have this person to present because I don't think I can say exactly what they're saying, then we can
Yeah,
do that.
and that's different than public comment. That's what I
Yes,
wanted to get
yeah,
at.
thank you for distinguishing that. I wasn't gathering that nuance. In the
So if I
question.
want to bring someone in because we do that from time to time, mayor allows it, to discuss, like, we're going to talk about polling locations. And let's say I had someone who wanted to address a concern they have with a polling location. They would need to do that during public comment,
Yes,
not on the agenda item.
Correct.
yes. If
Unless
it's
it was a business item that we were making
emotional,
a motion
because
on,
then
because
right
then we can
before-
talk about it then.
yes, right at that moment. So,
So it would need to be under business, but then we wouldn't be able to vote on it that night.
no. Let's
Oh my
make.
God.
Business items is what we vote on.
Oh, okay.
Discussion items are discussion.
Thank you.
So it'd be, if it was under business item, that person could then get up and speak.
Exactly.
Before the agenda item.
And before the presentation is made by staff, before a motion is made by council.
Okay,
Right.
that's kind of what we've been doing, right? That feels like.
Well, at any point in that discussion, if somebody is here to help us understand better that item that we're discussing,
Yeah.
then we want to hear it.
The thing that I would say is discussion items, I as the city administrator am gonna use that sparingly because you can see discussion items take a lot more time.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna try and get most of that feedback from you guys in other ways so that we can present recommendations. But there's sometimes, like the discussion item, I don't know which way the council wants to go. I was actually recommending the work session, but then in talking to the mayor, he brought up the idea of the flexibility. And so I checked with the city attorney and he said, yes, you could do that, but you have to create a policy. So that's the only reason why I brought it to you, is saying, which way do you want to go? And the mayor and I agreed, let's get consent from the council, we'll formalize the policy. Otherwise, I'm going to try and do all that legwork so we don't have to have a discussion on every little thing.
Part of what you do to help people understand how a city council meeting works, and we can and we do engage the public directly, much more than upper levels of government. But the way you help people understand it is that it's a city council meeting. It's an open meeting, but it is not open forum. And so what you ask them is you say, if you just showed up at the state capitol and you were observing the session, would you raise your hand and say, hey, wait a minute, I want to talk to that. Are they going to call you on you? No. And if you show up in Congress in Washington, D.C., and you're just observing the proceedings of the board, the Congress or the Senate, you don't just get to raise your hand from the public and become a member of that body.
So basically,
and that's the same rule that applies in a city council, except that a city council, because it's so immediate to the public, should and does engage the public much, much, much more than the other levels of government do.
And just to build your confidence, Councilmember Bowers, my background is in public relations and getting public input. So I'm going to always make sure that, and we're getting that public input and then they have the opportunity to make sure their voices are heard. That for me is always a priority. So you don't have to worry about that. We are just trying to create a formality for bringing items to you, because occasionally, like this item, I need a little direction before, because the last thing I want to do as a staff member is go down this path, making this solid recommendation, and you guys are like, we wanted you to go down this path and make a recommendation. I don't want to waste your time.
The other option we still have is if we have something that's going to be a lengthy and in-depth discussion, we can still schedule a work meeting
Right.
specifically for that.
So you really
hammer
have
that.
the option for both, doing both. If you want a separate work meeting on a separate night to go through it, yeah, this gives you a lot more flexibility. So the mayor really swayed me on this, and especially after talking to the city attorney.
I guess I like getting public input maybe more than other people do. And the reason Trent's here even running tonight is because he's frustrated with his lack of, I think sometimes being able to get input or be a voice or being heard at all. And good, he should run for that reason. He should run if that's his concern. But I get there's rules and we need to follow those rules, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we're not leaving our public unheard.
Well, I honestly feel like a healthier way to get that discussion to though is emails that were sent, because then I can call that person or I can respond to that email and say, wait, I don't understand this. And there's not time and it's not appropriate in this meeting for me to say, now tell me why that is, and tell me why that is, because that's not the purpose of this meeting.
So if I'm going to spend $50,000 doing dirt on the field, I want the input of the people who are going to be playing on the field.
Right, but it shouldn't necessarily happen at an open meeting. It should happen.
I thought they were
in a
invited
different
here
way.
to discuss that issue. I mean, I thought they were saying to discuss that issue. That was my understanding. So I apologize.
I mean, they were probably staying here to listen to the discussion item, but the way the discussion items work is there isn't technically public input for that.
If one of them was the high school baseball coach,
yeah, that's true.
I think that it would be appropriate for us to engage that, but where they weren't, and so.
That's a valid point. I'd actually love to hear from the high school softball and baseball coach. I really would.
Another
But
point,
I can call him.
another point that I want to make.
I can call him.
The other point that I want to make is these Roberts rules and these formalities and creating this policy actually creates a clear and concise way that the public can give input. And that's the purpose of them. I think sometimes we get lost because we get frustrated that I can't comment here, but we don't understand that actually you can, but you got to comment here. And so that's on us to help educate the public and make sure, and the mayor will do that at the beginning of every meeting. Is there any public input on discussion items or items not on the
And just maybe, and you did that when you were pro temp, but just reminding them this is their only opportunity. And so if there's an agenda item they want to address, now is the time.
Yeah.
I think that is important.
And I'll tell you that there's other cities that don't follow Robert's rules like they should, and the meetings devolve into shouting matches back and forth, and I don't think that's productive. And a little bit of what we had tonight was not productive.
I thought it was great. That's
So
okay.
do I have consent from the council to go the direction of forming a policy? for discussion item?
We have the whole, we have our policy already, so it's just a matter of inserting that language for that.
Okay, great.
So we should be able to have that recommendation on the language for that policy in 2 weeks, right?
Yes,
So that'll be
that's
on
the
the
plan.
agenda.
It should be pretty simple. I'll just need to go over it with the city attorney to make sure that we're covering all the bases.
I guess the counsel to the general public that's here is if you've got questions about what was going on and you felt like you're excluded from that, you're not. You can still talk to everybody at this table and the staff. But I think Katie's point is well taken. It doesn't usually end well when you just open up
And
the
I'll tell you
floor.
my
like
experience since I've been on here is that we've had orderly meetings. And we need to maintain that.
And so usually when I see somebody fidgeting and raising their hand, I invite them to visit with the city administrator and express their concern or their idea, or talk to anybody here. But in the course of that meeting is almost never the right time. And it's hard to understand that, but.
And then if they don't feel like they're getting through, by me, they can go to one of you, and
Sure.
one of you can ask to have that put on.
Capital projects.
Okay, so Mayor Council, we, last council meeting, we brought this to you and you asked us essentially to table it so that you could have time to chew on these projects and give us some feedback. One thing that I do want to say, to kind of preface this, is in talking to staff, I'll repeat myself actually for Councilmember Bowers. We're going on to the capital projects list. So now's the time for you to give us feedback. But one of the things that I've been talking to about staff is, well, what has been guiding our decisions on what capital projects we should prioritize year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we have some master plans and we have some things. So one of the things that I'm talking to staff about, that we're going to start working on over the next year, so that next year our capital projects will have a little more meat. Yes, thank you. Is basically I've asked them create a laundry list of all of our capital and maintenance needs, and we're in each area like IT, fleet. We're going to start putting together capital maintenance and replacement plans that will then, in coming years, guide what should go on these capital projects. Because I'll be honest with you, a lot of this is coming from some of the master plans with some of our infrastructure and utilities. But the rationale of why this year or that year wasn't always necessarily clear to me as a newcomer coming in. And staff, I seem to have pretty good support on, yeah, let's create these plans. It's going to take some time though. And we're creating some deadlines to do that. So that's a digression. But right now, I think as a placeholder, what kind of feedback do you have on the items that are here that have already been established in this capital projects list? Do you want us to make any adjustments? Terry can speak to, he's on Zoom, he can speak to any items that have already been completed ahead of time. So I think, I don't know, Terry, do you want to take a moment to just speak to anything first, or would you rather hear from council first and then kind of speak to those items?
I think I'm happy just to wait to hear from council.
Okay. So the treatment plant membranes are completed.
So the membranes is completed. Yes, that's right.
See, and I thought that you were going to come back to us with more firm numbers and understanding, like on the Central Park Pavilion, because we were talking water issues and we were talking power issues. And so I need that information before I can say anything on that. And same thing on shade structures. We have no real idea of cost on that for me to be able to make a decision on that.
So we weren't able to find anything on the shade structure. So that's something that David Palmer's still looking at to get those numbers. The pavilion, or no, wait, do I have it backwards? I think I've got it backwards. Let me look right here. Sorry, I was forwarded an email chain essentially from Jeremy. I'm trying to go in. Hey, Kim, are you on?
I was on that forward too.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the email with the attachment.
You can't hear me, here I am.
The attachment with the bid that Jeremy got on the shade structure, I thought I had it right here in my email, but I'm not finding it right here. Do you?
So the bids that he got on the shade structures down at the ballpark, I think that was an older bid. I don't think he had not gotten any new ones recently.
That's right. The bid
He
was out
did
of
get the bid. He got a good estimate on the pavilion at Central Park. But the shade structures were old bids, and I'm not sure that those were good numbers.
And one thing that we were concerned about with the shade structures was the price was okay, but the installation of them was.
And I'm sorry, forgive me, that's where my mind's gone blurry. Is we wanted to go back and get new bids because we felt that those weren't applicable, and that's why I'm not.
Local.
We discussed these things and we're all interested in doing them, but we're just kind of waiting.
We need those
numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know that I need to chew on doing those anymore. I just need to be able to chew on the
What the
numbers.
cost is for the public. So what I can do is I can follow up because we hadn't heard back from any vendors yet.
I'll find the attachments.
Well, pending further information on infill dirt, that would be a 2021.
Right.
Is this calendar years or fiscal years that we're looking?
Fiscal
This
year.
this would be this year, and so really,
those-
if we're gonna do the shade structures, it would have needed to probably already happen. I mean, we're in, I don't know.
If you
I guess we've got
remember,
6 months,
the
but-
conversation back in May was that if we felt like we had the funding based on what COVID did, then we would make the determination in January if we wanted to move forward. I think Jeremy's plan was to start this discussion on the capital projects in October, about the time that he decided to leave. And so that has pushed that down the road a little bit. Otherwise, we would have had those bids and everything ready to go. Now, on the baseball field shade structures, I'm getting tired, so I'm gonna start slurring now. I'm not in there doing anything else. I think we can get those in place and get those purchased if we can get some bids on those.
Okay.
Yes, so that's, and I apologize, that's where we're at, is we were trying to reach out and get new bids. And I'm sorry, sometimes getting bids can, just even getting a hold of someone to give us a bid can take a couple weeks. So that's where we were at with that. And I apologize for spacing.
But I will say, I like your idea of, hearing from the staff, what is important to them and what do they see our needs on the capital? Because sometimes it's hard for us to know exactly what to put on here other than our own thoughts and ideas, which is good, but I'd love to hear from them what their needs are too.
And we have, we contract with someone on IT needs. So when I was in Florida, our IT director, he had an IT infrastructure capital replacement plan from everything from your computers to your server. And so that's kind of what we've been talking about, is because, and I'm not saying that we are armchair quarterbacking, but there's some areas where we're like, it seems like we should come up and replace that here soon. Because some things are like, a pump, when you got to replace a pump, what the lifespan's supposed to be. But there's some things where it's like, I don't know, what is the lifespan on this computer that Dave's got or whatever. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. But even things like facilities, roof replacement. When was the last time the roof on this or other buildings were replaced? So but that's going to be a longer process, and that's kind of a digression from this. I think right now.
Are we just looking for 2021, or you're looking for ideas for 2022?
So what we need to do is, these are the ones that you approved for this year that went to CIB. Sorry, Dave.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to just get in the middle of this. So these are the things that we approved for this year, and those 4 things are in the budget. The current budget.
Okay. Pulling the string on actually spending the money is dependent on the details.
Is what are we going to submit to AOG CIB for this next fiscal year? This is what we had planned to put in there. So what we need to decide, or you need to decide, is are we moving all 5 of those things up to the next year? Are we going to wait and move this to next year? Because I don't know how we can get this pavilion done before the end of June. So I think it's just, because these other 2 things, the membranes and the reservoir site feasibility has been, I think the site feasibility study has been basically completed.
In the 2021, sorry for point of clarification, and anyone from the public may be listening, the 2021 is right now this fiscal year. And so I think the next things is that's where Terry's coming into play, is what can be done. I don't want to regurgitate what Kim just said. I think she explained it well. So
okay, so I'll just say again, I've said it before, not excited about a splash pad. Let's use our pool. So I'm not jazzed about that being on there personally.
I would scratch it myself.
Is there consent on that?
Well, I guess it's up to the council, but there's community members have approached me about a splash pad, which is why it's on there in the first place. And maybe I should ask them to come to speak during public comment if they'd like to keep it on our capital improvement projects plan. So.
You have a really expensive, high maintenance, free thing that competes with your other thing.
Depending on where it is. And my thing with this, and I don't know, I just feel slightly defeated with it all. We put stuff up there and then we put it down to the next year, and we'll talk about it and we'll get numbers, and then we don't do it.
And that's exactly why the explanation that I just gave about what I'm doing with staff, that's the reason why, so that you don't have that sentiment every year with the capital projects. And you'll have to forgive us because usually something like this would have been presented to you about the time that Jeremy left. And that's why it feels a little like we don't have enough information and perhaps this should have been decided earlier and stuff, but.
Well, those two things in yellow to me, we need to know that information now, we need to do
Yeah.
it.
And
And
I think that you can make the determination
Yeah.
on the Central Park Pavilion if you want to try to cram it into this year. From a financial standpoint and from my personal opinion is, I don't think you're gonna get that done by June 30th.
I don't either. I don't think you're gonna find a local contractor available to do it.
Contractor.
Well, let's try.
and so does that then knock it down to the next year? Then we've got-
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Because we're still, we found what Jeremy had. We discovered that it wasn't sufficient. We're in the middle of reaching out to these other, the vendors. So let's see what we can find out, like the dirt in the next couple of weeks, if we can even get someone here or get estimates. And then we can bring it back to you maybe one more time and they can tell us, can we do it by this time? And if not, at least we'll have an estimate to know, okay, well, if we're deferring it to next year, we know for sure we're gonna do it and we're gonna do it at this price.
I mean, ideally, I'd like to just crank it out. We said we were gonna do this stuff in 2021. Let's figure it out.
Right.
But really, we need those details still, and we're here at a meeting and don't have those details yet. I would like Terry to talk to us about water master plan update, street maintenance project, and water and sewer line replacement.
Okay, on 2022, fiscal year ending 2022, which will be the budget process we're working on in the next few months. It's been 10 years since we've updated our water master plan, and it's been our intent, the intent of the past city councils to update those master planning documents on a 10-year cycle. And so I would recommend that we still plan to do that. And so we'd be looking to budget for that here in the next few months, and that'd be a project we'd get started on. We'd have to start pretty early in next budget year in order to get that completed. The street maintenance project is one we're planning on doing. That's mostly the C road monies that come in from gas tax based on the number of miles of streets that we have. Currently, as you guys know, we don't really have money coming in from the transportation district anymore. And so we're pretty tight on project money to do maintenance on our streets, but we do have sufficient to do a project in that price range. Water and sewer line replacement, I would recommend that we bump that probably to fiscal ending 2023, just because we do plan to update our planning. Wow, that's a lot of plan words, but we wouldn't want to do the wrong project. And so I think that wouldn't hurt to let that slide a year.
Okay, so what kind of a project can we get out of the street maintenance? Like you do in one section of road in one part of town? I mean, what can we get for $300,000?
Not a lot. I mean, we'll do a substantial amount, but typically with those street maintenance project funds, that's going to be chip seals, maybe some slurry seal, and with the possibility of some reconstruction work on a block or maybe 2 city blocks. But it's not gonna, that doesn't build a lot of road or reconstruct very much. And so that will mostly be maintenance dollars.
What is our plan for the one street that we've had lots of complaints on?
300 East.
300 East.
300 East. We can look at that one, certainly. I believe we'll have some sewer costs associated with that as well that need to be taken care of before we can do the streets project. But the plan is to look at that and have a kind of an idea of where we're headed going forward. So we'll be able to.
Okay, I would like that to be a top consideration.
I don't know if I'm.
Add the word second Third East, Second South on there? Because I feel like we talked about this 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want to
Again,
like
it's another-
approve a capital project. It's like maybe a street, we don't know where. Like, I feel that that's where we're at, and maybe that's not. That's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just
We're all
tired.
tired. We're all tired. So I think
Well, typically on our maintenance projects, with the maintenance money, we just follow our pavement management program that we
I was
have.
gonna say,
And we
there's a-
don't bring every little project on every street to city council. And so we just show that money going in and out on capital.
There also at times, and I guess Kim and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes when you've got your capital maintenance plan or your streets management plan, you do have some, so maybe you know that streets X, Y, and Z are gonna cost you $500,000, but you also know, well, we really need to budget 600,000 because there's gonna be that pothole that shows up on this road that we weren't anticipating or whatever. So sometimes you want to budget with a little bit of discretionary to address needs that are unanticipated needs as well, sometimes in those plans, so. But Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, that the streets maintenance plan is what's guiding some of these budgetary numbers. And although this doesn't specify what streets, that street maintenance plan will identify those, correct?
Yes.
For the upcoming year? Okay.
Well, so going from the top down, the treatment plant thing is done. The baseball field structures, we think we can get done in this fiscal year, but we don't pull the string on spending that money until we have quotes to approve it. We're only approving it to be left on the list. And if it comes back and we say, yes, we can do that, that's when it's done. The site feasibility, reservoir site feasibility, we're moving forward with. Central Park Pavilion, we don't feel like we could get the planning in place in order to get it in this year. So we move it to next year.
But how soon next
Seeing
year,
that?
next fiscal year, can we pull the trigger on it?
On which part?
Like
I
the
think,
pavilion?
right, well,
I think as soon as we can get those bids and timing from them.
it's just that we're not gonna get it done by June, so
I'm
that
saying,
puts
but
it
we
in the
could maybe
22,
July or-
22.
Yeah, we can.
Potentially, yeah,
we just
it
move
could
those
be
dollars
August.
forward.
So we don't just throw it away for another.
It could
Yeah.
happen early, and it's just that budget year.
I think here's what I'll say, if you leave it on there, we will, if they can get it done by June, within X number of dollars or whatever, then we'll get it done by June. If it's August or
So
July.
we'll just move it if we get to the point that the fiscal year is
Precisely.
spent.
So leave it in
So I
21.
like that. Let's try to make it
Leave it
happen.
in
by-
21 for
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we got up till June done.
So we
Now
can
we're looking at
amend
22.
this later if we need to make an amendment to it. Right, Kim?
Yeah,
If they
yeah,
need to be moved.
if you don't get that completed this year, it can automatically just bump down.
Okay.
This is a
Okay,
working document, it just, it floats, it moves. We've moved stuff up and down over the years and said, oh, we're not gonna get that done, let's move it down to next year. Or, hey, we've got the money, this really needs to be done right now, and we bumped it up. We just need something to submit to the AOG and to CIV so that they kind of know what we're planning to do, so that we can go for funding.
Basically,
If
your
they
hands
don't
aren't
have
tied.
it,
now this whole,
We can't
the
do
idea of the infill dirt, if we aren't even gonna have detail on that until the second meeting in February, we're obviously not gonna finish it before baseball starts the first week of March. So
That should be
it's-
on our
So
2022.
it cannot be in this year's plan. It physically can't be there, but it could be done as early as July, which is the 22 thing. So we need to have it listed as a capital project.
Yeah, we'll have, once we get some estimates, then we can amend accordingly.
So when you do get those estimates and those bids on that, they'll be, when can they get in to do it?
Right.
So that may drag when those projects can be completed.
Can we put it on the
But it
22?
seems to me it would be
I think
2022.
we do.
We just don't know the dollar amount.
I mean, we
yet,
don't
but
know
we
a lot
can-
of it on there. I would still like to put it on there and can rotate
Or
through if
are we deadline driven? Are we having an issue because this needs to go to the CIB or whoever you
Yes,
said right now?
They need this list by the 1st of March.
Okay.
And honestly, we don't even have, pun intended, a ballpark estimate for the infill dirt, so, to be able to put it on there, but we can amend it and put it on.
It has to be on the list for us to consider. Putting it on the list doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it, but I do experience the frustration that we kind of just, and part of it's the timing of this last fall and all of that. So it's causing some frustration, but we'll get through it. The stuff that comes further down the list can be quite general. The 2024 street project, we don't know, but by the time that's next year, then
We wanna know.
then we got, okay, it's these maintenance things and it's this new street. We know, when we're looking at next year's budget, that's when we need the more the fine detail on that. So we know, what is that project? When the ones that are out in the future, they are placeholders.
Yeah. And
We know there's going to be street maintenance needing to be done for 100 years, but we don't know what it's going to be until we're a year or two out.
One issue we ran into this year was, okay, so we blame everything on COVID, but it really has stifled because we would have been moving on those shade structures and the pavilion right after,
And nobody was going to talk to us.
right after the budget passed, and yet we decided to wait because we didn't know where we would be at this time. So it's kind of caused a little bit of
hesitation,
frustration, and then things last fall, and now here we are. But
We'll
I
get
think
through
we're
it.
okay if we have to shuffle it a little bit, a few more months down the road. I think it's okay. I think that Dave's plan for setting up some of these capital replacement and a little better planning will make this document much better.
More defined, more
And
detailed.
hopefully with that, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if you look at it in 2025, that 1 million gallon tank liner, I put that on there a few years ago because there was an issue with that thing leaking. I don't know that that's an issue anymore. So maybe when you evaluate things, maybe that's not an issue. Maybe that doesn't need to be a placeholder anymore.
Well, and that's actually something I talked to Terry about this morning, and he was showing me about that and showed that the leakage identified as nominal in comparison. So you're right, maybe that's something that we no longer need on there. And the capital replacement and maintenance plans that it's gonna take some work to put together, but it'll give you an idea. If we know that a pump X by, this area needs to be replaced every 15 years, I'm just making this up, we'll know approximately now what that cost would be, maybe include a little inflation, and in 5 years, we can expect generally about this much. So it's not entirely just numbers out of hats, but hopefully some sort of ballpark.
It'll get more refined.
All right, so what more do you need from us for us to move on?
I just need a consent to move forward with this consent to move forward with this so that we can then submit it right through the CIB, or do we need more than that?
Well, yeah, it's gonna have to come back for you guys to decide which one of those 2022 items.
For a formal motion.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe by then we'll have some of those numbers for the pavilion and shade structures, and you'll
Okay.
know. So the next meeting, we'll bring it back for the formal approval, so.
When it comes back next time, Dave, maybe we can bring it as a spreadsheet so that we can shuffle things right then and there.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good
For
idea.
how it is.
Let's do everything we can to do that, to get those numbers.
If you remember
Okay.
last year, this was a very long process to get this passed, so.
And Terry, if you'll get us maybe more information on what the master plan update is, so we can understand that better, and maybe what street maintenance projects you've identified in your master plan for streets, that would help us.
Okay,
Right?
typically on the streets projects, until we actually put that together and see where it fits in the budget, we won't know exactly which streets we're recommending doing maintenance on. So that can come as we get there. And then on the other, kind of the same thing, on the water master plan, we'll put that scope of work together as we go into the budget process so that we can get ballpark numbers on what we think that might cost when we do an RFP for engineering on that.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll make sure that we have identified.
Request for proposal.
We'll make sure that we have identified what's in the docket to be worked on. Okay, I think we have what we need for this.
I was gonna say, with the splash pad, I don't mind if we move that down to 2023. I just don't want to take it off completely till I can talk to the people who had asked for that to to be considered to come in and talk to the council so they know why.
That's fine.
I guess if I.
But I don't,
If we have
if
consent.
they're not, if they
Yeah, no,
don't like
more,
it on there,
yeah, I
then
would, I mean, when I had originally, I think that I had probably brought that because I had,
you had put it out there, what,
yeah, and it was talked about in several different ways, but I think, yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more and see. I don't think it's urgent. I don't think we're doing it.
if it's not
next
a
year,
problem to
but
leave it on, then we can
maybe
leave
we
it
don't
on.
do
But
it
if you
at
need
all,
to move
but
it down,
still
you
like
can
to-
move it down and then we can get some more input on it.
Okay.
Because I see pros and cons definitely of that.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Business items 1 and 2 are done. Resolution updating, updated water conservation plan. So the changes that were recommended were made. We don't have a copy of it in here.
I
But
thought we did. Isn't that what this is?
no, that one's the wastewater.
Oh.
Oh, did we not?
The wastewater
Water
survey.
conservation plan.
There
But Terry
was some
sent it
pretty
to us in an email.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
some pretty minor changes and they
Yeah.
got made.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 1-26-2021-1, the updated water conservation plan.
I'll second it.
It's Perkins and Bowers, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess. You can abstain and say, I wasn't in on that discussion, so an abstention is fine. So that's Kellen Milton abstaining, everybody else says aye. Resolution passes. Resolution, is this I guess this is approving the municipal wastewater, what is the MWP?
Municipal wastewater. I think.
Planning
Planning.
Oh,
Oh.
it's on, I was getting there. So it was an interesting read. Actually, I read it really carefully a couple of times and we kind of found some things that weren't quite accurate and I think we got them fixed. So.
All this.
So I'd adopt them, I would accept the motion to accept or approve the,
Do we need to ask for public input on this item or the last item? Sorry, I forgot to ask.
they've been in discussion a couple of times.
I just wanted to check on.
Because it's not it's not public hearing. So
That's right.
they don't require a public hearing just to approve a plan. So.
I'll make a motion, unless you want to. You go
I
ahead.
haven't got to make motion more. I'll make a motion that we accept resolutions 01-26-2021-2, municipal wastewater planning program.
I will second it.
Ooh, we got a whole different thing there with Turk and Monson, all in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, one comment on the MWPP.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to let council know David Lyman has done most of the legwork on that report and he kind of oversees our sanitary sewer management plan and these guys come up with crazy acronyms, but this is kind of an annual report that we do on sewer to water quality. It's something they put together to help us do planning as well as report things like sanitary sewer overflows. And so I just wanted to make sure the council knew that David's worked pretty hard on this report. Kim's assisted him with the finance stuff. So anyway, he's done a good job on that report.
Okay, so a little bit of a statement and then we may table this because it's getting late. And so is there a sense of urgency on discussing this, yay or nay?
This?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a sense of urgency. Okay.
This shouldn't be long. Like, there's no-
Okay, so now.
It shouldn't be long on your end.
So I'll lay a little bit, well, but if there's a sense of urgency for it.
We need to have them.
We needed to
Next-
do it in
next
October.
February's first meeting, this absolutely has to be done.
And decided.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we had some discussion about a remodel of the visitor center to create rental space. Is that idea moving forward or is it gone COVID crazy? I don't know.
No, so I guess let me give me a.
Because that was kind of a
and we can-
preemptive thing
we
to
can-
continue with these guys. So
So-
let's hear it.
Briefly, it was brought up, what do we do with the visitor center by a council member? Because it does cost money to run it, does not generate money. We looked at options for remodeling. Those numbers
are close to six figures. If we're gonna spend six figures to add to retail space, let's spend six figures and just remodel the entire building is kind of what Jeremy and I came up with.
Okay.
With the licensed contractor. So that's been tabled and done. We haven't done anything of it. We brought it to the council. We brought this to the council because of a county resident felt that they were entitled to sell product in the visitor center due to the traffic numbers. That's a large can of worms to open when you let one business sell or run it with no track record or anything of the nature. We haven't heard from this individual in almost a year. Anyways, we've renewed this contract like annually the last 2 years. We told CNHA we were going to close for 4 months due to budgetary reasons. That's not something we normally do, Kel. We usually run the visitor center year round. Their contract ended in November, which is kind of why we figured, mid-November would be a good time for you guys to decide. Nothing ever came of that. Jeremy left. Anyways, this needs to be in place because March 1st, we need to have everything up and ready to go for that visitor center to open. On the 15th, but Lynn and them need to be in there by the 1st, getting everything ready. CNHA needs to bring back product that they took because we were closed. So all we're asking right now is let's renew CNHA for 1 year, and we can bring all this back again because, knock on wood, David won't be leaving in the midst of this come September and October. And we can, rehash out letting locals run their business. That's my thought.
Let me just support what he's saying. I think for sake of time and everything, you've had a working relationship, it's revenue generating for us. It doesn't cost us anything to have them in there. Let's evaluate this and see, because we've already been talking about just more ideas for the visitor center anyhow.
Well, when we had this discussion, there was a lot of discussion about what is the product mix and does it compete with other businesses? Does it not compete? And these guys had the product mix that the council generally was saying that is the product mix we want. And we weren't really finding a source for that kind of product.
But there's not time for an alternative in 1 month. That's where we're at.
I don't disagree with you. We just had this exact same, I'm just frustrated tonight. We had this exact same discussion a year ago, and we swore we were not going to let it go another year. And here we are another year. And I understand that we've had a change of the guard and that we've had COVID, and the visitor center needs to, Logan was right. It loses money, and we need to make sure we have a vision for it and what it's going to be. And we have a lot of people in this town who want to sell their stuff, and we can't discount those people. It's just frustrating that we're here again. We're saying, let's renew this for another year when we had this exact conversation a year ago.
But people can sell their stuff in their own small businesses. This is it's not the city's job to sell people's things. We are government. We are not small business.
But we're selling CNHA stuff, so that's not true.
Educational material, though. It's completely different.
Nonprofit.
But these are things that are landing specific items. And it's hard because we're going to have this back and forth discussion because we're going to disagree a little bit on this, and that's okay. But I'm okay with renewing this for a year. I do not want to, I'm running for, I may or may not run, I guess I don't know, but this is my last year and I want to see this get done. It's incredibly frustrating that we're here again. And
Cheryl, I went to Kim and David when we first came on board, and I said, in my career on the council, this is the most frustrating thing I've dealt with, because we've said now, I think it's 2 years. What are we going to do there? What are we going to do there? I don't have a problem with those guys doing that, but we need to make a decision and not
keep putting it off. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you on that.
This is the vision that the council agrees to.
But I'm okay selling these guys, but we need to make a decision. It needs to be done this year, how this thing's going to work and how it's going to look, or we just
and it needs to be done before the end of the year, before we're in a bad place again. But for real, COVID has ruined so many things. And
if I can
I
make 2
recognize
points
that.
real quick. So generally with government entities like this, you would do like a request for proposals for a concessionaire. And one person wins the bid to be the concessionaire, whether it's a 1-year term, a 10-year term, or whatever you want to do.
And honestly, that's one of the things that we were looking at.
So
And
that's
it
what I'm
felt
suggesting is
hard.
in the upcoming year, so when we're 3 months away from renewing the contract, or at the end of the contract, I should say, then we do an RFP for a concessionaire. And we can see, and they have to include certain mix of product, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that I would say is, in my mind, the concessionaire portion is really, although it is a revenue generating portion, I think it's just one part of what the visitor center is and could be and should be. And so that's what Pratt and I are going to be working on, is brainstorming, how can we better capitalize? And I guess the third point is, so there are some things in government, and I hate saying this, like recreation. Sometimes there are some things in government that we decide isn't revenue generating, and I'm not saying all recreation's not, but like a rec center. Sometimes they're not net neutral. Sometimes we just make the decision for quality of life, whether it's for tourists or for residents, that we are going to subsidize this a portion and recognize that we're only going to bring in 80% or 10% of the revenues, whatever it is. And so, but that's a policy decision. So we're going to do all that we can to create a plan and those things. But I think right now, let's decide on this. And the concessionaire RFP to me is an easy thing to put together and do. So to me, that's an easy solve. The more difficult part is creating this larger scope of plan. And right now we're just going to hit some low hanging fruit with regards to that. But
so I would say we have a deadline of July that we have an RFP written.
And I think if we write
So
an
that it doesn't
RFP,
disappear again.
Yeah.
it will appease some of our locals who have, asked to be involved in this process. At least if we're giving them the opportunity to bid on an RFP, I think that, that will
I
help
agree.
with the
I agree.
situation.
So I say we really don't have other choices. That we do need to go ahead and renew it, or else we have an empty visitor center.
Yeah.
And that's not cool.
For
I don't
sake
want
of
that.
formality,
I don't want
the thing before the council right now is simply renewing this contract. I've heard an RFP by July. That's separate than what's in front of the council here. So with the RFP thing, I would need consent from council by July sort of thing, or if we want to determine a deadline later. But anyways, I'll leave that to the mayor to kind of guide that.
Well, so you, to formalize that, you're suggesting an
Do you want me to put it on an agenda item for next time?
No,
So we
or
can act
I
on
think
that,
it's
or you're
fine here.
saying-
If there's consent from
It's
agenda.
all in the mix here.
Yeah, if there's consent from the.
Because we were going down the road towards an RFP when
Anyways, yeah, I think we're safe. We don't need to make another discussion
just
item.
one of
if
those
there's
other
consent
things that
to
died
do
in
that. So,
COVID death.
Sounds good.
So, do you need a motion then to renew the CNHF? Okay,
Yes.
I so motion
I'll
for
second
1
it.
year. We're renewing the CNHA Visitor Center contract for 1 year.
Okay,
And I will
first and
second that.
third, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
Nay.
Okay, it's 3-1. You got our,
No,
I'm a no.
I'm a
oh,
no.
3-2. I meant to say 3-2 because 3 and 2 equals 5. So my math is,
I need.
I'm a
we
nay.
have Kellen Nilsson, aye. Logan Monson, nay. Katie Perkins, aye. Cheryl Bowers, nay. Robert Turk, aye.
But I don't want to have this discussion again next year.
I promise we won't.
okay, that's in the minutes. I'm highlighting it and putting it on my
No,
wall.
as we talked that around, I remember having quite a few discussions with the staff on creating an RFP for that right after those meetings. What will the RFP look like? And then everything fell apart. And here we are again.
all I'm saying is it's been a fun fire hose the first 2 weeks, and it's gonna be great. So.
Helen, our meetings are usually not this long.
This is not fair. No.
They say that all the time and they always do.
But then, they've never gone to 10:30?
Yeah.
Please tell me there's no executive session tonight.
It's all your fault.
I will not entertain a motion. I will not entertain a motion
To
for
go
a
into
closed
exec,
session.
okay.
I'll make the
Well-
motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's Monson and Perkins. Now, if there's any question on the motion?
Oh, stop.
All